Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Guys in the Garage podcast. I'm here today with JJ Roco. How you doing?
I'm great, man.
Yeah?
Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So what exactly, I kind of have an idea, out of the conversations that we've had, what exactly is it that you do?
So I'm a radiologist or a neuro-radiologist, which is a specialty or subspecialty in medicine, which interprets medical imaging. So my part in terms of the whole, which cog am I in the whole machine, I'm the referral-based specialist who, once the physician wants something in terms of medical imaging, whether it be a chest x-ray or an MRI of the spine, once that's completed by the technologist, it's then submitted to the radiologist to give their opinion, their interpretation of the images, and that is finalized in a report, a typed report that goes in the patient's chart, but it also goes to the doctor that ordered it.
Okay, so you're not an X-ray tech, but
Right.
an interpreter.
Right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Kind of, okay. So after 12 years of high school, it was the 4 years of college, the undergraduate, then it's 4 years of medical school, then it's a 1-year internship, then it's a 4-year residency, and then I just did a 1-year fellowship after the residency. So that's like in terms of my education.
So residency where you were actually based in a hospital.
Yes. Yes. And that took place in Philadelphia. That was part of my 6 years in Philly.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. That was an interesting place.
Was that a
Interesting
rough
time.
hospital to work at?
There's rougher in that city, but yeah, it was kind of rough. It had its moments.
Jeez.
Yeah, there were rougher ones. When I was an intern, we had to rotate through 4 different hospitals, and they were in just different parts of Philadelphia, right? And so they had a different demographic depending on where the hospital was located. But they also had different physicians. So some of them were, more helpful than others, shall I say. But that was more interesting during the 1 year of rotating internship. That was pretty cool.
So what got you into what you're doing?
So when I was young, I thought I was so smart, right? Like any other teen, like I just rule the world and, big man on campus. And I figured I like science, right? I'd be pretty good at chemistry and biology, and I like people. So my little simple mathematical formula is like, people who are good at science and like people, they should go into medicine, right? So then I was obsessed with one particular college, because as the Yale Guide to the Colleges back then published, as they described this college, they said, as McDonald's is known for its hamburgers, so Johns Hopkins is known for its pre-meds, right? So I'm like, okay, if I want to go and become a doctor, I got to go to a place where they have a lot of pre-meds. So I was obsessed with Hopkins to the point where I applied early decision, got accepted, and I knew before all my classmates where I was going to college. Well, they're still waiting until the spring. And that was probably one of my biggest jerk moments of my periods of my life, because you can't imagine. I never put myself in their spot, how they're, anxious about finding out where they're going to go. And I already knew, and I'm just, it was my first choice. So of course I was all cocky. And then of course, once I got to Hopkins, I was humbled immediately, because I was no longer the big fish in a little pond. I was 3,000 miles away from where I grew up, meeting people that had a chip on their shoulder because that school to them was a backup to the Ivy League, and they're pissed off now. They're like, you didn't accept me, Harvard? I'm going to show you. And they were acting at 19 years of age as if it was a job, and they would go immediately after they had their dinner, to the library, and they'd spend all night, every night, right? And they'd grind it out, and that just wasn't me, So I quickly fell back of the pack and then it kind of continued. So I was kind of lucky to actually graduate. I remember my developmental biology final. After that, I thought, I failed. I'm not going to graduate. That was so brutal to me, right? And I got a D. And I was like, I was rejoicing for a D that actually passed, that I was going to actually graduate. Well, as you can infer, my grades and by association, my MCAT scores weren't the best for me to get accepted into any recognizable medical school. But just as chance would have it, an osteopathic school in California called the College of Osteopathic Medicine of the Pacific, it's now part of the Western University of Health Sciences in Pomona, because they got a vet school, a PA school, they got all these nursing schools, they got all kinds of schools associated with it. But they accepted me. So I'm like, okay. Well, once I was on that track, so the first 2 years of medical school are in the classroom and in the lab, right? So you're not out in the hospital yet. But then your third and fourth year, you get to do what they call rotations. Some places call them externships, where you put on your little short white lab coat, not the long ones that the doctors wear so they can tell the difference.
Yeah.
Right? And you follow around the doctors and you do these different specialties. Well, the radiologist that I met during an elective was the first physician I had met who liked his job. And that rubbed off on me, because I'm like, everyone up in there, who are you? Oh, I'm the med school. Oh, okay, come, follow me. And then they're just complaining about medicine the whole day. They're teaching me some things, but they're just unhappy. And of course,
so they're just like jaded.
You're and then you're halfway through the process, right, of getting this degree, thinking like, how would I even pay off whatever debts I've incurred up until this point with being a barista?
Which I mean, even then was probably a lot.
Tons, right? Even, yeah. So you're like, when you see someone who actually liked what they did, now you're like, okay, let me find out why. Why are you the only like happy physician? And I found out. I mean, their lifestyle is great. I mean, it's one of the best specialty lifestyles. And they don't have, look, we know each other in part because of this whole Mr. Nice Guy thing. Well, Mr. Nice Guy for me at that point was being like overly, I don't know, I don't want to call myself empathetic, but overly relatable to like what the patients were going through. So like, to have a conversation to say like, Mrs. Jones, like you have cancer, like that would just, I just knew like I couldn't, if I had to do that every single day, like it would just drain me to the point where I wouldn't have a good longevity. Right.
Do you think that's part of why maybe those other doctors were, so jaded?
I'm sure that had a major factor.
Day in, day out of just telling people bad shit.
Right. Because they don't, it's who's good news? Who's coming, Mr. Jones ain't coming in to be like, hey, doctor, that meds you put me on are fantastic. I feel 10 years younger. Yeah. Like, no, it's like, let's check your blood pressure. Oh, we have to adjust the dosage. It's like, but the other thing was that the same guy that was very happy in his specialty, he showed me quickly that most of radiology is anatomy and pathology, which were the two things that I liked and was pretty good at while we were sitting in the classroom as med students, right? So it just, I remember distinctly, he had this CAT scan of the neck up on the viewing board. Back then, it wasn't computerized. You actually had these view boards, right? So they used to print out the film and they would hang it up on these big, with the lights coming through, right?
Yeah, the big light boards with the negatives all over.
Absolutely. You see them in TV shows and movies probably still to this day because they have to have some effect, right? Yeah. I would tell you like maybe 8 out of 10 times the x-ray that they have up is hanging the wrong way. It's not like, it's not the way it's supposed to be presented, right? So I remember him going through this CT of the neck and he's pointing at this, he's pointing at that. And I'm just like rattling off what he points at as what part of the anatomy. And so then he's quiet after. And I said, well, was that pretty good for a third-year medical student? And he says, that was good for a third-year resident. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I've kind of found my niche here. And then in this small reading room, there's maybe 2 or 3 radiologists. They're all, you basically just talking to the dictaphone all day. Back then, it was like the little micro cassettes. Right? But now they have voice recognition. You don't even have a transcriptionist anymore, which is a little bit sad because I was always friendly with the transcriptionists. They were an interesting group of ladies. So then what would happen in this little reading room? It was just a small community hospital in, I think it was Montclair, California. And what would happen is, here come the referring doctors, right? So the surgeon wants to come in. He wants to take a look at this CAT scan, where you called like, something was perforated and it needs emergency surgery. So they want to look at the images, right? I always had a partiality towards the physicians that would actually want to look at the images and go over them with you, right? Even though they would take up your time,
Yeah.
which is fine. They cared enough about the patient to actually want to have a discussion in person about like what they ordered and what they found and what's taken them to surgery. But one thing that would happen is the surgeon would come in, and then after doing that, they would like say some bit of like gossip, right? They'd be like, oh, that doctor Nabob, like he's such a jerk, like he's never sending me like any good patients, he's always sending me like the sickest ones. And and you'd be like, okay, because you have no dog in the fight. You have to like all the doctors because you rely on them to send you patients to be imaged. So you're like, okay. And then half an hour goes by, and the internist that he was bad-mouthing comes in and takes a look at something else, and then will bad-mouth the surgeon. So then you start realizing, so like, oh, now we know like which surgeons like which internists, and this whole, like, you're in the middle of like a mini general hospital. So when I realized, oh, we're in the hub of the gossip of the hospital too. Like, this is a benefit. I'm like a gossip hound, right? Still from like my high school days. Like, sure, let's hear it. And all I have to do is listen. I don't have to be part of the gossip. This is great. So that's when I started thinking like radiology might be for me, right?
That's kind of cool, being in the middle of like the most intense people watching, but you get to hear everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I pursued it so at the time in my fourth year medical school, I fell in love with and got engaged to this woman who worked for Merck. She was a pharmaceutical rep. I could tell you how drastically different my life would be if I had not broken off that marriage. But she was going to get this promotion. That's what she told me. And part of that includes training at a place at their headquarters in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, which is, outside of Philadelphia. So when I'm looking for places because med school is coming to an end and you have to pick a place to do like your rotating internship. So I looked at these different places and I applied to and got accepted to the place in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. They accepted me. My fiance is still in California, not getting her bump yet, right? Yeah. So I'm actually ahead of her, right? I thought I was going to be like chasing her. She'd already have relocated, but I'm ahead of her. Well, during that year of separation was when it just came to light that this isn't meant to be a permanent, lifetime commitment for me with her. And I think that one of the things I said to her was like, the only decision I've ever made in this relationship, I think, is breaking it off. Right. So we broke it off. And so and then at that point, I had already been accepted to the residency program at the same location. And
this was in Philadelphia?
Yes. And even if I wanted to transfer at that point, I think I would have had to like repeat some years. And so I was just thinking like, I don't want to repeat any years. Right.
Yeah.
Because especially not the internship year. I mean, there's some just brutal, ugly stuff. You go to the one hospital and they expect you at like 3 a.m. to get the urinalysis and take a sample and spin it under the centrifuge and look at it under the microscope, because they're going to ask you all this stuff in public in front of your colleagues. I shouldn't say in public, but in front of all your colleagues at the next morning report when you're bloodshot-eyed and they're all well rested, and they're attending physicians, so they know way more than you. They could ask you any particular thing if they feel like being dicks that day. Yeah. Right? I mean, I got one of my great memories of a morning report, and it was at the one hospital where all the doctors took it very seriously, right? So morning report is this. The intern that was on call the night before, or interns, right? Any patients that got admitted to the hospital that made it through the ER and had to be admitted, they were involved with, they need to present those to the other physicians in the room that are going to decide what probably the best management course is for this particular patient, right? So it was a weekend, and I had the weekend off. I was rested, and it was a Monday morning report. And this clown classmate of ours, he almost looked exactly like Inspector Clouseau from the Pink Panther movies. I'm not kidding. I mean, everything. He had like the longest like hair on his fingers. It was almost like he was like constantly combing it. He was so poor at presenting cases, right? And just poor in general. For all I know, the guy's the richest doctor in the world by now, but he was poor as an intern. I mean, I just don't know how to say it any more briefly. He started presenting this case, and then out of nowhere, a resident says, JJ, you had an interesting case like last week. Like, why don't you talk about that? Okay, so out of the blue, I'm like basically equivalent to like cold cocked because I got no notes on this guy. I got no lab reports. I got nothing except for my memory, right? And this was actually a really difficult case. This guy had all kinds of medical problems. He was in his 90s, like blind. It was a mess. It was a mess. And the attendings couldn't figure out what's going on, but they're just hammering me. And like, I have nothing, right? And then I felt so demoralized, not at the time, not realizing that it's really kind of a compliment, right? Because they let the other guy just go, right? The guy who was supposed to be reporting, they just like, this guy's not going to learn anything from us, right? He's just like, just write him off. But JJ must have some potential because he's, the case was crazy. But anyways, when I'm walking out, one of the attendings like, oh, interesting case, huh? I'm just like, yeah. Like, I was just so, I don't know why somehow you triggered that memory, but that was kind of a synopsis of internship, right? You kind of have to go through the gauntlet in order to be finally accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of put you through the ringer to test you and,
oh yeah,
see if you've got the will to stick in with it.
Yeah. And then residency is like the same thing, but it's in like your specialty. So you're doing like barium enemas. So you're sticking like tubes up, you're sticking tubes up people's butts. And then when like the balloon doesn't stay, you've got the little like water weenie of like whiteness, like spraying all over your shoes and the floor. So you got like people trying to drink the barium and throwing up on you. So it's like all kinds of, that's not even talking about the procedures that involve blood or anything, right? So yeah. So it's just a whole gauntlet. So that's why at this point, fast forward to like where I am now, I've got a job that's basically a teleradiologist. So I can interpret over the computer from home images that come from a variety of hospitals and imaging centers. I never have to leave my home. The trade-off is that I do it at somewhat odd hours when other people don't want to work. So that's where I am now. So I don't have to go back into an imaging center. I no longer have to put on gloves and like do the sterile technique with needles. No more barium enemas, nothing, none of that stuff. Right?
Yeah. Staring at a computer from your cozy home office beats wiping up shit, piss, and blood and vomit.
Oh yeah. Plus the radiation exposure, right? So some people don't even think about that.
Yeah.
Right. I used to have to wear the little badge around and they turn it in every month to see how much radiation you've gotten. And now it's like no badge for me.
Oh really? You have to wear a badge?
Well, and if you ever go, next time if heaven forbid you find yourself in the radiology department and someone with a white coat, they should have a badge. It's like a little square and it's got some like computerized like number that's in it, but it's like inside of it is a little detector, which you're supposed to every month like turn it in, and then they're supposed to put on suspension people whose badges are over a certain limit. I've never got that, thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you're only allowed, what is it, X amount per year and X amount per lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Of different types of radiation.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact numbers, amounts, or the units for that.
Yeah, I only remember that because of a thing that I was watching about Chernobyl.
Oh.
They were talking about how everybody that worked on like cleaning it up and containing it when it happened got their lifetime dosage within 2 days, like of being there, like everybody.
Yeah. I still haven't seen that. That was probably that special that was on Netflix or something.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah.
Okay. I got to watch that.
Yeah, I've never even noticed that. I didn't know that, they had to wear, detector badge or anything like that.
Because the guys who do interventional radiology, which as fortune would have it, one of the guys who went to Hopkins with me, who was my fraternity brother, actually was in my dorm too. Fast forward years later, we reconnect on Facebook, and he's a golfer. So now he's been on all these golf trips. Well, he just happens to be an interventional radiologist. Now he works in Billings, Montana. But interventional radiologists can't do what I'm doing. You got to be there with the patient, right?
Yeah.
You have to swipe them down with betadine and give lidocaine and put the needle in. You have to do that. You can't do that from home.
Yeah.
Right? So that subspecialty is exposed to way more radiation, right? Because they're constantly in there with the patient, exposing, themselves to. So anyways, I did that. That was part of my 1-year fellowship. I only did 1 year. Some neuroradiology fellowships are 2 years because I didn't want to be so far removed from reading mammograms and chest x-rays that I would still be marketable, right? So when I went to look for my job, I'd be like, okay, I can do this, right? I can do an angiogram, but I can also read a mammogram. Like, oh, okay, you're would be good fit. My first job was in Yuma, Arizona. Right. So I went there because this group seemed solid. They were based in both Phoenix and Yuma. But I don't know. I thought like, okay, Yuma would be pretty cool. And then I could drive home maybe 4.5 hours to see my parents in LA. You know, wouldn't be that far from them. But Yuma was just super hot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably hot as shit.
Yeah. And at the time, there wasn't a service called Nighthawk, because now someone developed a service where they would cover the radiologist over like the hours when you normally sleep. So you could work until maybe like say 11 midnight, and then from like midnight to say like 6 a.m, they can send everything out for someone located elsewhere, a company, to do the interpretations. Well, they didn't have that back then. So anytime someone burped at like 2 a.m, the ER's ordering an ultrasound, like you had to get up, you had to go into the hospital, and you had to look at the ultrasound. So I was ripe for the picking when I had to work the day after one of these type of call situations. I'm tired, and this phone call comes through, and it's a headhunter, right? And so I was still young, single. This is my only job, but I was just low-hanging fruit for him, because he's like, oh, you won't have to do any more call. Yeah, you don't have to work any more weekends. It's way more money than like you're making now. Like, don't you want to come to Houston? So I'm like, you know what? That's Houston sounding delicious right now, right?
Yeah.
So I tried it out. That was the worst job of my life. So anytime someone tells me that a headhunter talked to them, I have this bias against headhunters. I'm like, watch out, right?
Yeah, what are they hunting you for?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, get all the details before you jump in.
Right.
Yeah, Houston, that's a whole different knot.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't do well with heat to begin with, let alone just wet heat.
That was one of my radiology colleagues. I remember him saying this. He was quite a jokester, and he spent a lot of time in Florida. He's like, yeah, like in this time of year, this summer in Florida, like you take a shower just to dry off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, humidity was not good. I was only there for 6 months. I mean, I couldn't take that job. That stressed me out, because then there was a procedure board, right? So you'd get in, and the hours were like super, like I'm not a huge morning person. Like you're getting in at 7 a.m. and you're going to the procedure board, because you can sleep all night, because you're like, what procedure are they going to like put me on today? Like, oh no, he's got me on like 3 discograms. Well, here's a discogram. I never was trained to do that in my fellowship, because it's probably considered barbaric in most parts of the world, right? You go into medicine because you actually want to alleviate pain, not recreate it. But when you do a discogram, right, you use the x-ray machine to guide a needle into the disc space. We'll just use lumbar spine, because it's probably the most common. So in the lower back, you're putting the needle in, you verify its position by putting a little contrast in, you know you're in the disc space, and then, right, the patient's not under any anesthesia, they're wide awake only.
So they can feel everything that's going on.
Then you inject the disc, and you go, yeah, Mr. Jones, is this the pain that you've been experiencing? Is this recreating the pain for you? Right? And then you finally get to the disc, and they're like, like what is it out of 10? Sir, what is it out of 10? Is it a 9 out of 10? It's a 10. It's a 10. It's like, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that supposedly was going to help the orthopedic surgeon decide which level to actually concentrate on the operation. I mean, the practice has way been outdated now, but at the time I was like, I don't want to do this. I did not go into medicine for this, right? So I just said, it's time to get out of here, and then went to a job for a big company in California. And then I was just talking with my wife. It's like, look, at this point, I've collected how many state licenses now? Like, I got Texas, Arizona, California, Pennsylvania. Maybe I'll just be like a substitute teacher and do what they call locums, and just look for jobs where I just can go back and forth and not have like any permanent job, because a permanent job seems to suck. You know? And so I sent out letters asking for references, you know, because you need references to work for one of these temp agencies, I guess I would call them, for radiology, right? So one of my former colleagues back in residency, he was a chief resident, he was a couple years ahead of me. He asked, what are you looking for? Because I got an opportunity here, small town, rural Pennsylvania now, right? At this point, I'm married. Okay, so somewhere in between Houston and back in California, because my wife is just like, I don't think I can live in Houston. And I'm like, good, because I hate this job. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, let's go to California. We're both from, my parents are alive at the time, her mom's still alive, but it was just a better fit, except for I had to commute. I had a long drive for a commute. That was the only downside with this job in California. So that wore on me. So when my friend, my former colleague, chief resident, he enticed us to go to rural Pennsylvania. We looked, it's like small town. We can kind of know people. It's, seems like a community. The job was pretty straightforward. I mean, it was just, there was enough work for two of us, but it was a small community hospital. So, okay, that's great. So it was going well, right? We were friendly. We'd socialize with the people and at work, and we made friends. I mean, my wife and I were taking tennis lessons. It was kind of but it was just a really small town. I would say 8 out of 10 people, if you ever meet, they're from Pennsylvania. If you tell them you lived in Wellsboro, they no idea what it is.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. Right. So that's how rural we were. Well, it came to light that before I was made a partner, Pennsylvania is just a weird state in terms of all their districting for stuff. Well, there was a thing that my partner and his accountant didn't know about, where now all these back taxes are going to be incurred on the partnership. And I'm like, well, what does that got to do with me? I became a partner after all this.
Yeah.
That should come out of your end. And he's just like, no, it's coming out of both our ends. So I'm like, I don't think so. So that relationship didn't end well. Right. So at this point, I had a contact with the company I'd left, and he told me oh, the company's changed. I've returned to it. And so you should come back. And so we went, and that's when we went to the Coachella Valley in Palm Springs, Palm Desert area. And we lived there for about a decade.
Damn.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm telling you my whole resume. I don't know if that's what you wanted to.
No, it's cool. It's interesting to hear how you get from point A to point B to point C,
Maintaining human contacts, right? It's only maintaining human contacts. So I maintained contacts with some colleagues. And some that I thought were pretty wise, and I would consult when I was facing a major decision like that, Yeah. So
what brought you up here to northern Idaho?
So my wife as she will tell the story, she was supposed to move up here in the 90s, but right before they we're going to move up here, she says with her dad died of a heart attack. And so that never came to fruition. We were clearly getting done with California, right? As much as there's an emotional attachment there because it's where I was born and raised, we could see the writing on the wall, right, in 2016. And as luck would have it, a relationship that was maintained between my wife and the husband of another couple where we had a birthing class together, right? Back when we lived in the desert, they said they had moved from the desert and they now were living in northern Idaho. So we're like, okay, well, we got to go to some place where we know somebody, right? It's going to be probably harder if we move to a place that we don't know anybody. So the places we knew people were Salt Lake, northern Idaho, and Bend, Oregon, right? So those were the 3 places that were kind of on our radar to try and check out. Well, we never made it to Salt Lake or Bend. I mean, I've been to Bend for a golf tournament, but I haven't been with the family, right? So it was as soon as we came to northern Idaho, I thought it was fantastic. My wife thought it was too slow. Now things are too fast and Rathdrum for her. Right? But at the time in 2016, I remember her hugging me. She's like, "It just seems so slow and boring here." So at 2016, it wasn't ready. We weren't ready. My marriage for sure was not ready, right? And part of that was because of the job circumstance. They wouldn't let you work outside of the state of California. So if we had moved here, then I would have had to fly to California at least once a month, and so do all that. But now they've expanded it. It's as long as you have a license in the state that you're working from, you can be wherever you want in the United States. Can't be international because of Medicare, but you can be in the United States. So we came back. Right in 2018, after a couple years, we worked on our marriage. We saw couples counseling. Our marriage was way more solid, and that policy I just mentioned regarding working like changed. So now that opens it up. Now we can move. We can finally get out of here. So in 2018, we came up, and as you can imagine, I'm sure you've experienced it yourself, the real estate market had changed dramatically in just 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. It was up like what, 70% or something crazy. It was up like a lot. Right. So
yeah, it was quite a bit.
So all the places that we had looked at in 2016 in Coeur d'Alene, they're no longer available. And what was available is just like everything's a fixer upper and nothing. It's like, you know, so our friends had already moved from Coeur d'Alene up to Rathdrum. So my wife's just asking, like, you know, the realtor, like, well, what about Rathdrum? And the realtor's like, oh, you know, it's like you mentioned Compton or something, like when you're like looking for Beverly Hills, she was like, oh. And so she wasn't helpful at all. So my wife, being the way she is, it's like just business. She like went with our friend's realtor who helped get us the old place in Rathdrum, which is like, it's a historic type home. It's pretty cool. I mean, I like the place. And so that's how we ended up here.
Yeah. If she wants to see slow and boring, take her over to the Silver Valley.
Yeah. She's been, we went to lunch in Wallace.
And she hasn't decided to move there yet?
No, she hasn't.
Lucky for you.
Yeah, she's loving Bonner. So
we had I think it was 2015. Yeah, it was 14 or 15. We bought a place in Kellogg because we lived here. Mm-hmm. It was a single wide, like 14 by 70 something trailer that my wife had. All of her life, she's lived in trailers, so she really wanted a stick built house, and so we did everything we could, spent a ton of money and got into some debt, you know, fixing up the trailer. And I mean, it was pretty nice when we sold it. And then we took that money, was able to roll it into a place that we found in Kellogg. And originally I never wanted to go to Kellogg. I didn't want to go any farther than Kingston, but it's funny because she was looking at houses over there just, you know, for shits and giggles, just because she wanted to see what there was. And she found this house and she loved it. It was amazing. It was everything she wanted, but she didn't tell me anything about it because it was in Kellogg. And then same thing, just because, you know, I was tired of looking at all the same stuff. I was like, you know, I'll see whatever's over there. Why not? And so I looked at the same house and just was like, that's kind of cool. Like, I think I could probably live there. So I sent her the listing. And she comes back with, oh my God, that's the exact same house I was just looking at yesterday, but I didn't send it to you because you didn't want to go to Kellogg and blah, blah, blah. Why are you sending me this? And I was like, honestly, it's awesome. Let's go look at it. And it was the first house that we had looked at out of, I mean, dozens. We had looked at so many houses, I can't even remember how many. It was the first one that we looked at where we both walked in and we were like, yeah, okay, this is home. Yeah, I could live here. This is great. And so that was that. Yeah. But it was an old, cool home too. It was built in 1902. Oh yeah. And when we moved in, before we could move in, we had to do lead paint abatement, and then it had like this older house, I guess you could call it, but it was really just at this point it was a storage thing. Oh, okay. It had been a house at one point, like a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, little tiny cabin like thing. But it had asbestos flooring in it. And then the paint on that place and the house was both lead paint. It was really old. So we had to wait for them to come through and tear all the paint off. And then they had to spray some kind of special paint coating over something inside that old shed thing because of the asbestos. Yeah.
But meanwhile, the former owners were just living as if everything was fine.
Yeah. Well, the original owner was I can't remember his name, but he was he worked for the city. Everybody knew him, and so when we moved into the house, everybody, when we'd go to, you know, like the city hall to pay our water bill or something, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, so and so's old house."
Yeah. So they refer to it as that person's house.
Yeah, everybody knew him.
It as that house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even our electrician that we hired, because that house actually still had old knob and 2 wiring in it. So we had to get an electrician to come in and do an inspection on it and write a letter so that we could get homeowners insurance. And we had called a couple of others and they were like, no, I'm not doing that. And this guy, it was the last guy that I had found in the book that was local. And I was like, look, all I need you to do is to come in, take a look at it, and then just write a letter stating your opinion. Like, you don't have to say, oh yeah, it's safe, it's fine. All you have to state is your professional opinion about it, whether or not you think it's, acceptable, or, that it's, whether or not it's dangerous. That's all I need you to do. Mm-hmm. And the guy was like, well, I'm not going to sign off, on it being safe. And I go, I don't want you to say it's safe. You don't have to say it's safe. Word it however you want to so that you're not liable. We just need you to give your professional opinion about it. So what he put in the letter was, that in the Silver Valley, every house there, because it was built during the mining boom,
a long time ago.
Yeah, 1800s. So every house there was so damn old that almost every one of them had knob and tube wiring in it at some point, if not still active in the house at somewhere, buried in a wall. And so he put in the letter, out of all the homes in the area that he's ever worked on that have it, as long as no one has messed with it and it hasn't been spliced or cut or tapped, and you don't mess with it, even if it's live, as long as it's left alone and you don't overload it, it's, in his opinion,
it's fine.
It's fine. He's like, that's the number one cause of house fires in this area, is because people use too many, outlet taps or whatever, extension cords that are too big, stuff like that. And they try to run too much stuff. And yeah, that knob and tube wiring catches on fire because it's a modern age and everything's electrical.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was the only way we were able to get insurance on it, was because of that guy. But that same guy had done the wiring for the living room, because the living room used to be a garage. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it had been redone into a nice big living room, and he did all the wiring in it. So it was funny because even he remembered. He was like, oh yeah, this is so-and-so's house. I remember doing this. I did that. But that room, the living room that he did, was the only one in the breaker panel where if you flipped that breaker, that's what turned off. Everything else was just a crapshoot.
Oh, wow.
You had like one breaker that controlled an outlet in the bathroom for the washing machine, but also turned off the porch light.
That's crazy.
Stuff like that is everywhere. It was a nightmare. Like, maintenance wise, it was a nice old house. We loved it, but being the man of the house, having to do, clean the gutters and fix everything and all that, it was a nightmare. I was not fond of it.
Yeah.
Anytime I had to work on something, you didn't know what you were going to find.
Plus, you're always commuting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was driving, 50 miles?
Yeah. That's got to take a toll.
Well, and that's one way. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get used to it.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
You get in the car in the morning and you almost just blank out. And then you show up at work and you're like, oh, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And then same thing on the way home. It was nice having the drive home, because then you could kind of unwind.
Yeah. Decompress a little bit before you walk in the door.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was nice. But then it's still the stress of, by the time I got home, I had basically spent a 12-hour day because I worked 10-hour days. So it took me an hour to get to work in the morning, and then plus that hour at night. So I'm getting up super early, working all day, and then driving another hour home. And by the time I get home, all I want to do is eat and go to bed.
Yeah.
I don't have time to do anything else. Me, I'm a night person, so I want to stay up all the time. Even after I get home, my brain is exhausted, or my body is, but my brain is still on. So.
And that impacts you for the next day.
Yeah.
And you're risking sleep deprivation at that point.
Yep. So, the whole time we lived there, it felt like by Friday every week, I'm dead. And I'd just sleep on Friday. And then weekends were great. And then I hated Mondays.
I'm sure.
Because I knew it was going to start all over again.
Yep. And then just working for the weekend. As the Loverboy song sang.
Everybody's working for the weekend.
You know what's something that you just reminded me of that I read a while ago, is that the psychology of people is so interesting that when they're asked to subjectively rate their happiness scale or their mood or whatever, something like that, on Friday, right, it's actually higher than it is on Sunday. So on a day where they're actually working, in anticipation for that day off Saturday.
Yeah.
They're so TGIF, they're such a good mood, they're so happy, compared to a day when they're actually off and don't have to do any work, anticipating the Monday that's coming the next day.
Yeah.
Right. So they're happier on a Friday than a Sunday. I always thought that fascinating.
Yeah.
But the human mind is always fast forward.
Well, that whole thing with, what is it? Companies that do like major layoffs or when they fire people, they wait until Friday, because they have the weekend to think over any crazy shit they might want to do, in retaliation.
Exactly.
But then they're also happiest. So when you're telling somebody on a Friday, like, oh yeah, by the way, you don't have a job anymore.
Well, at least I'm off tomorrow.
Yeah, at least I'm off tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if Monster works on Saturday. I'll put my resume on there.
Indeed, monster.com.
Yeah, Indeed's now the new thing, yeah. Hopefully I answered all your questions.
Oh, yeah.
Probably was too long-winded, but...
No, man, it's good.
It's unraveled my resume.
I find it interesting, yeah.
So, I mean, just looking at your wrenches, like, there's not one missing, and they're all, like, perfectly organized. And
well, that set is.
Yeah, well, because I just think, like, I'm lucky to have, like, a wrench drawer. It's just, like, the assorted wrenches.
Yeah. I don't know. I have several sets of wrenches. I still have tools that I used in college.
Well, it's one of the best tools for you.
Yeah.
If you've been using them for that long, you've mastered them, right? Mastery.
Yeah, but that's the thing is they're Harbor Freight tools. And people used to give me shit all the time for having Harbor Freight tools. I'm like...
Why is that?
Because they're garbage and they don't last that long and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? You know why Snap-on gives you a lifetime warranty? Because for one, it costs $1 million and their tools aren't any better. They're going to break and they will replace them. And that's great. But a lot of the Harbor Freight stuff comes from the same vendors. And I mean, some of it, it comes from China and it isn't the best quality. But any tool, if you take care of it and you're not throwing it all over the shop and beating the hell out of it, is going to last you a while.
You've proven that.
Right.
That's a testimony to how well you take care of stuff. If you've had this supposedly lower quality item, and you've had it since college.
Well, and the other thing that I think of is, well, okay, so what did you pay for that set of screwdrivers from Snap-on? $300 and some bucks for a pair of screwdrivers.
Wow.
You get a lifetime warranty anytime you want. You can go drop them off at one of the trucks, and they'll replace it for nothing. Cool. Well, I can go to Harbor Freight and spend another $10 on a pair of screwdrivers when they do finally break and just take care of them.
Yeah.
And it's not going to cost me that much.
You can get a pair of screwdrivers a month for a year practically.
Yeah.
For what you pay for Snap-on.
Yeah.
You reminded me of Tommy Boy. Remember Tommy Boy?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like when Chris Farley is saying something like, well, what do they mean by putting the guarantee on the box? They just guaranteed you a piece of shit, right? It's like... We don't have a guarantee. There's no guarantee on the box. Yeah, because we don't have to replace a freaking thing every month.
Yeah. That's actually one of the best scenes of that entire movie.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
I just talked about the movie earlier this week because the guy at Safelite who was going to replace my windshield, his last name is Sandusky. So when I saw his card, he gave me his business card. When I saw it, I said, "Hey, you've seen Tommy Boy, right?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I love that." So he started going, "Tommy one wingy." So many great lines.
Sandusky. That makes me think of was it the coach that got into all that trouble? And Daniel Tosh has a great bit about it.
The coach. You're talking about from Penn State.
Yeah.
Yes. Was this the same name?
Yeah, it was Sandusky.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't remember. I know. Yeah, you're probably right. I just remember Paterno. I just remember Joe Paterno.
Joe Paterno. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I always think of Tommy Boy first. I guess that's good. I'd rather think of a comedy than think of some freaking freaky pedophile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tommy Boy is one of the greatest movies ever. Is that the one with the bees?
Yes. Follow my lead.
Yeah.
Like,
little trick my dad taught me.
The cops are out there. I'm allergic. We'll come back later.
Yeah. Yeah. They just take off and leave him there.
That was fantastic.
Well, let me change this stupid thing.
You're an Android dude, right? You have like a Galaxy or something?
Yeah, it's the S22 Plus.
Okay. Yeah, our daughter's into Androids, but my wife and I, we both have iPhones. It's just like iPhones are so, for the most part, user friendly. You don't even need like a brain to like figure anything out, right? It just like almost does it on its own.
There's pros and cons.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that Androids are all Google.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for the simple fact that, Google records everything you do, and I mean, everything you type, everything you look at, it's all going into a beta. And Apple does it too. They've admitted that they do the same stuff. Personally, I just feel that Google's a little more nefarious about it and what they're doing with it.
That's what someone just telling me earlier today about some article they saw that Google is actively suppressing like GOP donation websites or something like that. So,
yeah, I've heard that stuff too.
Yeah,
I think a lot of them do that. Like, I don't think it's just Google. The only one I've heard that, supposedly absolutely doesn't do that stuff is DuckDuckGo. And then there's the new one that was actually created by the guy who made, he either founded or he helped found Mozilla.
Mozilla, Firefox.
Yeah, so Firefox.
Yeah.
And he made a new one, and it's called Brave.
Yeah, that's what I have on my phone. I use Brave all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I was waiting for you to say that because I was like, I've heard so much about Brave.
Yeah, supposedly that one does no tracking whatsoever. It doesn't retain any data. They don't save anything anywhere.
Yeah, that's what they told me. Because I'm into the privacy thing,
Yeah, I haven't started using that one. I think I put it on one of my computers. I was going to play with it, but I have not yet.
What was a quote that I liked from Snowden? It was something like, because you're against privacy, because you have nothing to hide, is like saying like you're against free speech because you have nothing to say. Right?
That's pretty good.
Something to that effect.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm a big fan of privacy. I don't want anybody seeing anything that I'm doing. And the only reason why is because it's none of your business.
Yeah. And that's why the only crypto I own are like both privacy coins, Monero and Pirate Chain, because they're untrackable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like as soon as I heard about Bitcoin and I dabbled in it, it's like, why is this so great? It's still not like widely acceptable yet, and now apparently they can track it. So it's like they're going to get the Bitcoin taxes, right?
Yeah, it's still decentralized though.
Yes, that's true.
Unless I'm mixing that up with something else. I know there was a big thing with Ethereum.
Yes,
and I don't remember. Ethereum. Yeah, I don't remember what went down with that. And like so many people are gravitating towards that one. And I don't know why. I should keep up more on this stuff, but I don't.
I don't. Believe me, I just cram now and then, and I take people's advice that I trust, and I don't even follow it day by day. Like,
Yeah.
I can't get into it. I mean, you see red numbers and what it's supposed to be, put you in a bad mood, and like you're supposed to be all upset and anxious about like your money, and then you see green numbers and like, hey, maybe I'll have a shake today. I'm feeling good. I mean, you're gonna let that affect you psychologically? I don't know. Once it did, I'm like, why am I doing this? It's not fun.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we did that one men's group meeting at the place that had the aquariums.
Yeah.
And Luke came, and really smart dude with that stuff.
Totally
like
smart.
The conversation we had with him about that was great. I would love to get him on here at some point.
I'm sure he'd do it.
Yeah. Talk to him a little more about all of that stuff, the Bitcoin and the NFTs and all that stuff.
Guy's a master at it, man.
Yeah.
And I think he's really gone all in on it, and to a degree, right? So I guess I'm just jaded. So the part of me that's as skeptical about it is that it's a step more towards a centralized worldwide digital currency, right? So if I'm getting into the habit of doing everything digitally, like on my phone is where my wallet is, literally like my crypto wallet. So that's where my money is. Now you've just made me one step closer to being controlled by the social credit score we were talking about earlier today, right?
Oh yeah.
Once all of my money is in the phone, is in the cloud, is in the digital space, and I decide to post something on social media that you don't agree with, then it's basically you froze it or you've limited my money, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, as best as I can, I try to carry cash. And in a way, I'm not very good at budgeting, but it helps me like, okay, this week I'm going to take out X $100, right? So it's like I start on Monday. If I'm like, on Friday, it's like, okay, I'm like looking at leftovers in the fridge. If I've been like, not conscious of my spending up to that point.
Yeah.
Now, this is setting aside gas, because gas is...
Well, yeah.
I'm not going to go that far. I don't think anyone pays cash for gas, but...
I mean, there's people that still do. I don't. But.
Yeah. But, I mean, gas is just a whole nother... I don't even know. It's like a whole page in the budget, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a whole separate category, right?
Well, if you don't have a way to get to work to make money to feed your budget, then
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there who just ride a bike, but I don't know. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. In the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think
We've
so.
had guys at my work that, and I mean, I don't know if it's by choice or if it's just, you know, because that's how they got to get around.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that end up working, you know, where I work, that come from, you know, just some bad backgrounds. We hire a lot of felons. We hire a lot of veterans and ex-cons and stuff like that. It's actually surprising to me, like how many of them that we hire.
Mm-hmm.
And in the old days, before, you know, I was a supervisor and before I actually did hiring and stuff like that, I would have never thought of it, you know, but you find out more and more, wow, like there's a lot of people that we hire that just come from, you know, a bad spot, and you see them all the time coming in on their bicycle, and, you know, they're parked outside. I'm surprised actually we don't have more like bike parking.
Racks, yeah. Why not?
There's a lot of guys that ride their bicycle in and then they park it somewhere.
It wouldn't be that expensive. So
Yeah,
they
that's-
probably lost their license or something like that. But how do you find them as employees or like workers? They work their ass off or what?
Yeah.
For the most part?
Yeah.
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 For all you know, they're grateful to even have a job. They're riding their bike to the job. Like they're probably like happy to not be in prison.
Yeah. The only thing that are bugaboos for us are like violent offenses and, you know, sexual offenses like pedophiles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know we had a guy once who lied on his application and somehow it got through. I believe he came on as a temp to begin with, and they're supposed to do all of the background checks for us.
Yeah. That's why you pay the agency.
Yeah. And somehow it got through, even though he lied about it, like, oh yeah, no priors. Well, it wasn't until like almost 3 years later, somehow it came up because I believe the agency called us to ask how he was working out just randomly. I don't know if it was just like they were trying to do a survey or something. I have no idea. But then we were like, yeah, why? And, you know, they told whoever.
They disclosed it at that time.
Yeah, they disclosed to them like, oh yeah, well, he had priors for, I don't want to say what it was, but
No,
it was
that's
pretty
fine.
bad.
No.
It was pretty bad.
Basically had an employee from the temp agency actually gotten on a computer and run the rap sheet before they even, you know, doled them out to you, this wouldn't even be an issue.
Yeah.
But thank goodness that your company didn't have any liability, right? If he would have done something during his term of employment.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And then that's be a lawsuit between your company and the temp agency.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, that's how I'd see it, right? That's your job.
Yeah, they ended up terminating him the next day, you know, and they didn't disclose why or anything else like that. But it's all public record. So of course, you know, another guy that we work with he's a super sleuth. He just loves digging up dirt on people.
Yeah.
He ended up going on Google and like finding him and his report and everything, and then told everybody. But yeah, it was surprising that it got through and that they hired him because it was pretty bad.
Well, it's just slip up by someone in the temp agency. I don't know. I mean, hopefully they found the flaw in their little system and put a little patch on it or something. Cause I mean, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. But you know, everybody that comes in that's got some kind of a record, I mean, they're always really good dudes. Like I've never had a problem with any of them. They're always super nice. You know, I mean, I don't know if it's just that they've done their time, you know, and they've been through and they did reform and they learned something or what, you know, or if they just got older and it was like, you know, I'm kind of done with that life.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, how many movies have you seen? Like, I'm not going back to the pen, Jerry.
Yeah.
I'm not going back.
Yeah.
Like, there's only one character that I can think of in a movie that was the opposite, which was that Brooks Hadlin in Shawshank Redemption, the old man.
Oh, yeah.
Who couldn't go outside because he just was so familiar with prison. Otherwise, no one wants to go back there.
Yeah. That's actually one of my favorite movies.
Oh, that's number one on IMDb.
Yeah. He was in for what, almost 50 years or something like that. And then by the time he got out, everything had just changed so much.
Yeah.
Which is funny to think about because everything changing was just, you know, like 1950 something Packards were still rolling around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody was just so dang fast and in a hurry. Wow, really? You wait till the 80s, dude.
That's right. Wait till 2020 to 2022.
Yeah.
How rapidly things change.
You see a Dodge Hellcat.
Yeah. So I think that they would be grateful to be out of prison, to be actually someone gave them a chance and employed them. And I'm thinking from the employer's perspective, right? You have someone that's hardworking and appreciative. You got a reliable employee, right? And there's probably less turnaround.
Yeah. Yeah. They're usually pretty grateful, and, all they want to do is they just want to work, Yeah. And a lot of them, it seems to me like a lot of them have kind of figured out in life that when they don't have something to do, idle hands are the devil's playground.
Yep. They get into trouble.
Yeah.
They just get into trouble.
So they work their asses off, and, they're always willing to do overtime. And I mean, they're really good at what they do, because they hyper focus on it, and they just put their mind to what their work,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's very interesting to me anyway, the difference between guys like that and then people that come in off the street, or whatever, that have no record whatsoever, just normal everyday Joes.
Mm-hmm.
Because these days you don't find too many that really want to work that hard. I mean, it's sad, but you don't
know what hard is.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. They haven't done hard time. You get into like the pen, I'm sure you're just like,
Yeah.
It's a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Criminal or not. Like, you were getting away with being a criminal until you were busted. And then you got a big slap in the face of reality, right? People that don't want to work, they haven't been slapped with reality yet. They've been coddled up until that point, right? Have they not? I mean,
yeah,
you're living in like the most prosperous country in the history of the civilization, right? Everything is convenient. I mean, geez, you're going to have like smart everything, right? Smart. You just tell Alexa to do something for you. You don't have to do it for yourself, right?
Yeah, smartphones.
Right.
And see, and that's one of the things. I don't know what it is. When we talk about Google listens to everything,
mm-hmm.
and Apple does too.
Sure.
Right. I don't know what it is about, but I mean, it's almost like I think they've proven before that Alexa is even worse. Like Alexa is the worst one. And I'm sure they all do it the same thing, but I don't know what it is specifically about Alexa, whether it's something that I heard or read or something, but like they're the worst. Like literally everything you ever say or do in your house, everything you ever order, it's all going through there, and it's all getting saved in a database somewhere. And a lot of the times they say, it's so that it helps them build their data models for voice recognition and stuff like that. And it's like, well, okay, sure.
Sure. We're going to sacrifice our human lives to improve artificial intelligence. But to my knowledge, Google and Apple haven't been subpoenaed to testify in a court of law against a defendant, right? So like Alexa records these conversations like when crimes are happening, right? Domestic abuse or something like that. And so the plaintiff's like, we want that recording.
Yeah.
We need Alexa's recording. We know you have it because it was on the devices in the same room where this domestic dispute is taking place. So, I mean, Google and Apple can track, but they're not going to necessarily at this point testify against me, but Alexa will.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that I do like about Apple is that they have been so, against handing out people's data and stuff like that, and people want to argue all the time. It's like, well, this guy committed a crime, or he's going to, and all you have to do is get into his iPhone and, his text message and all in there. It's like, okay, maybe you're right. But if everything we do and say is now all on our phones, and it's possible for anyone, including law enforcement or anybody else, to just hand out a piece of paper and say, let me see their stuff. Well, then that includes you. And you can say it all day long, like, well, I have nothing to hide. That's fine. But if you give up the right, then you're not going to get it back. So even if you have nothing to hide, you should never give up, the right to privacy. And that is one thing I like about Apple is that when the cops come to them and they're like, hey, we need you to unlock this guy's phone. Apple's like, no, fuck off. We're not doing it.
That was the San Bernardino Muslim case. That was what you were talking about, right?
I think so, yeah.
That was a specific case where they like, this guy's information is on the phone.
Yeah.
Apple, you need to like give us the code to like unlock it. And I'm thinking to myself, you're the freaking federal government. You're like extorting like half of my income out of me every single year to be like the best and the brightest. You can't figure out how to get into this phone?
Yeah, right.
You can't figure it out? A private company, Apple, is doing something better than you? They're doing better security? Why am I paying the government anything to like secure anything?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Aren't they supposed to be the best?
Yeah, they should have
confusing.
legions, of computer scientists on hand that should be able to just unlock it like that, and they can't.
There shouldn't even been a question.
Yeah.
Like, why are you asking Apple? Like, they're really better at this than you.
Yeah. Well, but it's Apple's encryption. It's, their coding. It's everything that's all theirs. So they know it.
Right.
So I'm sure they probably looked at it as, well, yeah, we could do it, but, it'd take more time and blah, blah, blah.
I want to go back to the point about nothing to hide, though. They claim that they have nothing to hide, but how do you know even what has to be hidden? Right? For the rule makers, they can make up any arbitrary rule to see anything on like a Ring camera that you have, and they could say that's a violation. Yeah. And they could come in and do whatever they want to you. Right. So it's like you don't even know what you're supposed to be hiding. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, at the end of the day is you give up a right, you're not going to get it back unless you fight for it, which is exactly what this country had to do. Mm-hmm. That's what the revolution was about.
I thought you were going there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was about separating us from, England, from the king of England, charging ridiculous taxes and everything else, and his lords, just doing whatever they wanted with whatever they wanted and taking whatever they wanted. And, we came over here under the king's rule, and then we at one point said, nah, you know what? We're kind of over this. We're done. And then, bam, it turned into a war because they didn't want to let it go. We said, hey, no, we want the right to just do our own thing. And they said, no, why would we give that to you? We want to control you. Mm-hmm. And so we had to go out and say, nope, not going to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems I see with people today is that it's been so long since that happened.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, I mean, I haven't been to school in years, but I'm sure it's not taught like it was a long time ago what happened.
Dude, they don't have time for that type of history. They're into LBGTQRS history. They don't need like American history.
Well, yeah.
That's all racist, isn't it? And when they went to slave owners, it's all racist in their minds. Like, why bother studying that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you can't. We had that conversation today about differentiating, and being able to compartmentalize. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, these guys did some really horrible stuff, but they did some really great stuff.
Indeed, absolutely.
Like you can't. You're going to burn everything great that they did to the ground because of, a few bad things they did.
Well, they're splitters, right? You see this online manifested in social media posts, and that is either you're 100% good or you're 100% bad.
Yeah.
And only in one little tiny whatever component of it, it makes you all bad.
Yeah.
Right? So they could never view Trump as a human being, like as part good and part bad, like every other human being, right? They all had to be bad, right? So it's like, because that's how the psychological mind is. It's all friend or foe, right? It can never be like, oh, I like this dude, he's cool, and this, but I remember when he was a jerk to me a couple of times, but oh well, I'll take the good outweighing the bad. But every human being's like that. But for these types, and I mean the majority of people that are online, it's like, you're on one side or the other. It's just black and white. I guess it's easy. That's part of the dumbing down.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's like all, yeah. But
yeah, it's stupid. It's all stupid horseshit to me. Like, just because they did something bad, and yes, it was terrible. Slavery is awful. I think we all agree on that, or at least we should. It was a horrible thing that people did to each other back then. And one thing that people seem to forget is that, it wasn't just African Americans who were enslaved. There were Irish slaves, there were Italian slaves, there were Greek slaves. I mean, a lot of people did a lot of really bad stuff back in the day. Mm-hmm. Okay, so knowing that, they're trying to erase things from history, and they're trying to rewrite the history books.
Oh, yeah.
For whatever reason, this all bad stuff, it's triggering, and we can't, stand to hear about it, because it makes us sad, and whatever the hell the thing is. It's like, no, You have to have history, and you have to learn about all the horrible stuff that we did in order to remember, so that it doesn't happen again, right? So we can look at all the bad stuff that like Christopher Columbus did. I mean, because he did a lot of bad shit too.
Oh yeah,
like a lot of horrible bad
yeah.
shit. So we can look at that and we can say, okay, well, what are the good things he did? Okay, we have these. Let's put them in this box. That's good stuff. We should keep that, you know? Well, what are the bad things he did? Well, those sucked. Okay, let's not do that. But if you start rewriting the history books to eliminate all the stuff that triggers you because it's scary, you're just going to forget about it. And then it leaves the door open for it to happen again. You know, it's like, who's the, you know, at the, what is it, the summit? Where all the, you know, world leaders get together.
Oh, the G7 or G8 summit?
Yeah.
That type of thing?
Yeah. And so who's the guy, Schwab something?
Oh, yeah, Klaus Schwab.
Klaus
You're talking
Schwab.
about like the World Economic Forum.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure.
And he's talking about
Build back
you will
better
own nothing
and be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
And you'll eat bugs.
yeah.
You're gonna
Well,
eat
how do you know
burgers.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how is that in any way up to you to tell everyone?
Right. Well, he's descended from Nazis, right? Like his father was a Nazi or something like that. So it's just Nazi behavior. It's true Nazi behavior, but people are just going along with it.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Oh, nothing, be happy. That sounds fantastic. I'll be so happy. Like what?
Well, and in some ways, I try to think about it, and it's like,
well, this is then this is planned, right? Are you implying that like this is all planned ahead of time? Like you own nothing. Like how does he know that?
well, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is planned. I'm sure it's, you know, it's a 12-step program or something.
Yeah.
They want to take away everything.
So the guy that I think is even more demonic is Schwab's right-hand man, and he looks like this evil troll, like he could be a character on one of the Tolkien like series, right? His name is Yuval Noah Harari, and the guy is basically, if you listen to what he says, I unfortunately was in a book club, and the guy who picked, one of the guys in the club picked one of his books called Sapiens, so I read it, and the first 20% was like, okay, I can understand this, and then like after that I'm like, what? He's saying stuff like humans are hackable animals. We can determine and instruct them on basically what to do, that free will no longer exists. This is like, I'm paraphrasing one of his statements, right? So it's like this guy and Klaus Schwab, they're both together. This is what they want to impose on basically humanity, right?
Yeah.
That's why you got all this stuff's going on, hyperinflation and food shortages and energy shortages. You know, there's going to be like that. What's Europe going to look like after this winter, right? They can't even heat the green firewood is like something that everyone wants, right? They're cutting down trees left and right if they can. And then of course the government's saying, this is our property. You can't cut down trees.
Yeah.
As they are blowing up pipelines to heat them.
You mean hackable animals as in like a computer being hacked?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that this is their intermediary step towards what they really want, which is transhumanism, right? So for most people, I think, this is all speculation opinion here, that don't have a sense of a higher power or God, I think that they yearn for something that's the people who believe in God yearn for, which is immortality. Right? The people who believe in God, they believe it's in heaven, and people that don't believe in God think that they can do it here, like on this earth. And I think part of that is the transhumanism thing, right? If I merge myself with some type of computer, some type of AI, then when my physical body finally gives out, like my mental body, my spirit or whatever can remain on in this artificial intelligence thing indefinitely, right? I think that's what they're getting at. So I think that's why he's talking about it like that we're reaching a point where human beings can be kind of controlled remotely without being completely, you know, hardware wires at this point. But then we'll get to that point where we'll next have like a little brain chip implant and kind of go from there. I mean, I don't know what the detailed plans are, but
yeah, I think it's going to be some kind of conglomeration of, you know, what Elon Musk is doing with the brain chip and all that stuff. Neuralink, yeah. So you've got Neuralink, and then you've got what we were talking about earlier today, Zuckerberg's,
Meta.
The metaverse. So I mean, put those two together, and then, you know, augmented reality and virtual reality is just kind of like the start of all of that, I think. I mean, you know, that's what Zuckerberg's banking on with the whole metaverse, is that everybody, you know, you're taking social media and all that stuff to the next level. right? Because we can already sit on Facebook all day and, we can scroll and we can look at everybody's memes and all that stuff. But now they want to do, okay, well, if everything's in VR and we can all feel like we're really there, even though we're not, that's cool, I guess, if you want to be locked into that kind of stuff. Me personally, I prefer the real world. I don't want to sit at home in a chair with a headset on watching a concert. I want to be there. I want to smell, all the sweaty people jumping around and enjoying themselves. I want to hear the band live. I want to be there and see them. It's like going to a Guar show, right? The whole point of going to Guar is to get covered in fake blood.
You could watch a Guar show on YouTube. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's awesome to see. You're like, oh yeah, man, I wish I was there. But that's exactly it. I wish I was there. It's not the same as actually being there, no matter what you do with a headset or anything else. So
they're conditioning the next generation, or people even in our generation, to accept this goggles and earphones, like virtual reality, as a substitute for reality.
Right.
Because did you ever see that clip of the metaverse shopping?
No.
So there's a clip that came out. I don't know, maybe it's a minute long. Talk about eerie. This is essentially what it's like. And you reminded me, you could sit on social media all day, but you still have to go shopping, right? So
metaverse shopping.
I don't know if it'd be on YouTube. I saw it on like Telegram channel. So she's saying something like, you're at Walmart. And she's like, oh, it looks like you're shopping for a bottle of red wine. Like this Cabernet is, Walmart. Maybe it was the Walmart one.
Walmart? Get a tour of the metaverse retail experience.
No, it wasn't that. It was this woman like in Walmart. Her head pops up and she's like telling you. The creepiest thing was when he went to grab a thing of milk. Like it's just a drag and click thing of... Yeah, put in Walmart next to shopping on the search bar, because I saw it kind of come up. There it is.
Metaverse shopping Walmart.
I don't know if it's a speed run. I think that's it. Let's say it's 2 minutes and 33. So, yeah.
We don't have to do the whole thing.
But the part that creeped me out was when he went for milk, right? And so she said...
Looks like you need a good wine pairing. Take a look to your right.
Wine pairing.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. So you're shopping now.
Your age has already been pre-verified through your profile.
So
you need to wait for an ID check.
Your age has been verified.
Just place the item in your cart whenever you're ready.
It's the milk. I want you to see when he grabs the milk. That's the part that tripped me out. It's just like, okay, we know your ID. That's fine. You're gonna know my age, right? So getting alcohol. I don't care. You know my age.
From your connected smart fridge. It looks like you already have a full gallon of milk at home. Should we put this one back?
So your connected refrigerator?
That's what freaked me out.
Yeah.
Like, why would you reach for the milk? You already have a gallon at home, according to your smart fridge. You sure you want to get another one? No, I'm going to put that back. Thanks, smart fridge.
So this is like Walmart's, online shopping and delivery, right? But you're doing it all in VR.
Yeah.
Which is kind of dumb, because the entire premise of doing the online shopping and delivery is to just quickly point at shit on your phone and have somebody drop it off.
Right.
So why do I give a shit about going to the store in VR and reliving the entire experience?
Because you love shopping. This is your new definition
I could
of
see
shopping.
I could see maybe
on Walmart.com.
Oh, this is great.
Add it to your cart, and I'll have it brought to the front for you.
Yeah, and then it's all brought to your car, because you're actually, I don't understand it.
You're
like so
maybe
you're
your
not
car
at
has
home.
like VR built into the
I guess.
windshield or
I don't
something.
get it. Like, it's like, oh, we're being brought out to your car. Like, okay, you're not shipping it to my house.
If you're going to tell me that I still have to do the entire shopping experience, even if it's in VR, and then I have to get in my car and drive down there and pick it up, no, I'm good.
I'm just going to do Amazon deliver it to my front door.
Yeah, no thanks. I'm out. $927 for groceries, man.
They got a TV too.
Oh,
Thanks for shopping at Walmart.
Look, they're flying the TV out to the car.
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
You drop it in the trunk with a drone.
So, but I don't understand. If they're going to your car, that means you actually had to drive to Walmart.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. If I have to still drive to the store after this whole damn thing, I'm not doing it.
The one thing that was blaringly omitted from this great video was all the freaks you see at Walmart. Like that's if you're going to drive to the actual store,
right?
I don't want to get out of my car and at least see the show. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the entire reason to go to Walmart anymore is just to see that.
Yeah,
the people of Walmart.
I probably told you, like, because I think we had to go to Walmart to get these like run down like clothes for this class we took that was supposed to be like on the field tourniquets, like, you know, bleeding and stuff.
Yeah.
So the clothes are gonna be ruined. So it's the first time I've been to Walmart. I can't even tell you, 3 years. Like I rarely go to Walmart. So I was just but as soon as we got there, I had to take a leak. So I go in the bathroom. There's two men talking to each other, each taking a crap from a different stall. And the handicap stall, the dude had like a dog in with him that was like laying down on the ground, like a medium
probably
size.
a service dog.
This is Walmart. It's like, what? You didn't include that in your video.
Yeah, right.
If I want to do like the actual shopping, right, in virtual reality, include some freaks. Like make it a video game.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to have me do the VR shopping and make me do the entire experience anyway. But you're not going to include, you know, like some crazy fat lady walking around with their belly hanging out of her undershirt.
With the shorts like 10 sizes too small.
Yeah. Somebody taking a dump while smoking crack.
Yeah. We got to see the freaks, man. If you're going to actually do Walmart. Either that or just send Amazon to my door. And I just don't have to take off my robe. Just go out and get what I want.
Yeah. But then you're still going to Amazon.
Yeah, I
think we talked about that too. As much as I try not to. I boycott Walmart so hard, and yet I still find myself ordering from Amazon.
Yeah, I order less and less, but I still order. It's not like I'm gone cold turkey. So
yeah,
I try to do mom and pops if I can, but man, the forces are just against you, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Especially when Amazon's got it in good with the government. They can keep prices low and they can like undercut everyone on everything, right?
Yeah.
Make it so convenient.
Well, and I mean, Walmart does the same stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, Walmart's entire business model was built on volume sales. I mean, they're kind of like retail Costco. You know, Costco is more wholesaling. I mean, really.
Yes. You're supposed to be, you're a member. You're a member.
Yeah. Whereas
restaurant.
Walmart is retail, but you know, that's how they've always done it. They look at it as, okay, I'm going to set up this entire mountain of, you know, $20 toasters, you know, in the middle of this aisle. And if I can get people to come in and buy this item that I've marked down, I'm going to take a slight loss on this. But when those people come in and they're walking around to get that toaster, they're also going to go, oh, shit, I do need tweezers. And then they're going to go, you know, for that. And then they're like, well, I'm at Walmart. I might as well pick up groceries and everything else while I'm here. Oh, hey, look at that. They're having a sale right now on, you know, pants, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, that's how they do it, is they mark something down that's really just inconsequential to get you in, you know. I mean, casinos in Vegas do the same thing.
It's exactly.
They always, you know, mark down the machines closer to the door, or you know, have some deal going on, and then they're built like mazes to keep you in. Walmart's kind of the same way.
Oh yeah, there's no clocks. You have no like windows. You just have no idea what time of day it is. You're just in this daze.
Yeah,
right?
That is interesting too. Like now that you mentioned that, with no windows and clocks, that the inside of all the casinos, especially in Vegas, are built to look like you're outside. Like if you go to New York, the entire inside of the building looks like you're outside on the streets of New York. Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Right. They paint the skies light blue and everything. Yeah.
It's cool, but I never thought about that until now. That's probably one of the entire purpose.
Part of the house advantage, right?
Yeah.
It's just totally depriving you of like your senses in many ways.
Well, I mean, if you think it's, you know, sundown party time all night because of the lighting and how everything's set up and what it looks like, maybe that's just a brain trick, you know, like, oh yeah, I'll stay up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll run to the ATM and get another, you know, $2,000, go pop that onto a table.
Yep. Oh boy. Yeah. I read this book, The Zen of Gambling, once upon a time, and the guy took gambling very like serious, right? Wayne Allen Root wrote that. And you may know that name. He was like, I don't know if he's a Republican or libertarian somewhere in Nevada, maybe.
That sounds familiar. I should write it down though.
He occasionally, but anyways, he's the one who pointed that out, that there's like no clocks and the whole thing is rigged to try and get as much of your money as possible. So you got to go in there with a business-like attitude, and
Yeah.
And he went into details of how to maybe do better at certain games than others, and his little tips on that. But
well, yeah, it's all, the longer you spend in there, the more money you're going to play, and the more money you play, the more money you're going to lose.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean that's why they give you free booze, because the more you drink, the dumber you get, and the more risks you're going to take. You should just cash out and walk away when you have your last $20. But you take another drink and you're like, I think I could get him.
Sure, yeah. This time, it's the gambler's fallacies everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I've lost so many hands in a row, I'm going to win this next hand.
Yeah.
Right?
When, I'm sorry, the house doesn't
The
care
odds
how
don't
many
change
times you've
hand to
lost.
hand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I definitely had, I would say, a version of a gambling addiction once upon a time. I was totally into it, and blackjack too, but my friend just recently asked me, he told me about some casino he likes in Washington. He likes to go play blackjack. And he says, no, they're not requiring masks anymore. Do you want to go? And I'm like, nah, I think that was part of it. He's like, I thought you liked blackjack. And like, yeah, you're right. I did like blackjack. I tried to memorize that little strategy card, but it just doesn't do it for me anymore,
Yeah, I was teaching myself at one point how to count cards, but I suck at math, so I didn't really get very good at it. But I did learn, okay, whether the dealer is showing a high card or a low card, how to kind of identify, a Pat's hand or a high hand, and then just looking at what everybody else has on the table. And again, I can't count that fast, so it's like, I don't know what card is coming next or what the odds are going to be and stuff like that. But I can at least get an idea, and that helps. But I always have to sit to the right of the dealer, so all the way at the end of the table. And the reason why is so that I have enough time to pay attention to what's coming out in everybody else's hand before it gets to me. So I can actually pay attention and be like, okay, that guy got that, next guy got that. I mean,
there's a little more pressure on that position, right? Like
there
is.
is.
Third base, because people are always looking at you like, dude, you going to take his bus card or not?
Yeah.
Because you're in like the gray zone, right?
Yeah. You're in last position. Everybody has already got their stuff and they've figured it out, and they're waiting for you to take your turn so they can get to the next thing. Yeah.
You got a 16 and he's got a 5 showing, and you're just like, okay, what does the card say to do?
Yeah. So when it gets to you, you have to be ready to make a decision. Yeah. That sucks.
So you go, boom, I'll take one, and it's a face card that would have busted him, right?
Yep.
And then everyone just being
Yeah, I'm no Rain Man by any means, but I've gotten better at it for sure.
You're no what's his face in Hangover?
Zach Galifianakis, yeah. The one-man wolf pack?
Yeah.
No.
Another great movie.
That was a great movie. I haven't seen that in forever.
Someone said that they thought I looked like Zach at one point. I guess my beard was longer, but I'm like, he doesn't have glasses.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Have you ever seen his show Between Two Ferns?
My wife watched it, and I think I saw one episode. It was a little bit weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
He's a weird dude.
Yeah.
He's more so just weird on his, his comedy stuff and on his show. I don't know. From what I've seen, like normal days, he's semi-normal, but I think the weirdness a lot of it is on purpose, because that's just his thing. That's his shtick.
Well, he brought it to the Hangover movies, right? I mean, he was the weird character.
Yeah. I'd love to hang out with that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the funniest thing you've seen recently?
The funniest thing I've seen recently, man, I honestly don't know. I watch so much older stuff because I just...
Well, that counts.
I get annoyed.
It doesn't have to be like... I mean, just like something that you've watched that's made you laugh, like recently, even if it's something that's older, like a rerun that you know
of. Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
What?
I've only seen clips from it. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't know. Somehow I missed it.
Fairly Brothers, man.
Oh, okay.
So
what else did they do? I know that name.
So they did.
Did they do Shallow Hal? No.
Actually, they might have. I don't remember.
Okay.
That's not a bad movie either. They might have done that one. That was so there was an era in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And so around that time where Dumb and Dumber came out, they did Dumb and Dumber, and they did the one with Randy Quaid and Woody Harrelson. It's the bowling movie.
Kingpin.
Oh,
I like that movie.
Those two.
I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, those
My
two
wife
are like
hates
the
that
greatest.
movie, but
Really?
I like that movie.
Yeah. I think my wife's a fond of it either.
I don't think she hates it, but
it's not their thing.
Yeah.
Those two, though, both the Farrelly brothers, and it was that era where they were just nailing it, right? Comedy back then, because you could get away with so much more.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
get away with normal things.
Yeah, but it's kind of like it was just smart potty humor, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dumb and Dumber, they were morons, but they weren't retarded. It was just that they had no common sense.
Mm-hmm.
So their brand of comedy, like, it's only funny because you're like, who doesn't know that? Like, why would you really?
Right.
But then, like, when they did it was like a prequel after that, When Harry Met Lloyd, and that was okay, but that wasn't the Farrelly brothers. That was somebody else who did that.
I didn't even know about that movie.
Yeah, and then they eventually did Dumb and Dumber 2.
Oh. And that was the Farrelly brothers?
Yeah. And that was in like the 2000s, I think.
Uh-huh.
It was horrible.
Oh, no.
Horrible, in my opinion. I couldn't.
No.
Yeah, I could barely even get through the whole
Well,
thing.
I'm sure it's not just your opinion. We can look up the IMDb stars.
Yeah,
I'd
right.
say it's under 5.
And the reason being is they just made them so stupid and so just
It was over the top.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of, dick, boob, and fart jokes, but when that's the entire premise of the movie, it just gets old.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, really? That smart potty humor wasn't there anymore.
It sounds like another example of a sequel where they just like, let's just plug and play with the format from the first one and just like change,
Yeah.
It's like we have a formula that was successful. People wants to do a sequel. It's easy money. Just like take out like this, that, and the other thing and just plug in like.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was, that I saw was just a cash grab.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, well, let's do this,
Yeah. That's unfortunate because that's what dooms like most sequels, right? And so many of them.
Yeah. Did you see Idiocracy?
Oh yeah. That's
okay,
classic.
So yeah, so it's not even
Farrelly Brothers. No,
that's
Mike Judge.
Mike Judge, yeah, the guy who did Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
That's not even a movie; it's a prophecy. It really is.
Yeah.
There's the one part in it where he like goes into the movie theater, and all that's on the screen is a dude's ass.
Yeah.
And everybody's like laughing so hard.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
There's not even a story or anything. It's just some dude's ass.
That's what we're coming down to. Yeah.
That's what Dumb and Dumber 2 was to me.
I got you.
And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah. Not funny. What's funny about this?
Mike Judge has a funny story about that too. About the guy's ass. It was actually a dude that worked on set, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And they needed somebody to do that, to just, show their ass while they film it for, it was like 10, 20 minutes or something, so that they'd have enough footage to use for cutting and everything for the movie.
Uh-huh.
And so the guy volunteered to do it. Well, and then years later, this guy is now, he's got a different job and he's doing something in finance, and banking and stuff. And he's, he's really made something out of himself.
Yeah.
And Mike Judge runs into him at a party, and it's like he recognizes him, and the guy recognizes Mike Judge.
I'm sure.
And Mike was like, "Weren't you?" And the guy was like, "No," like giving him because the girl that he was with, he never told her that was his ass on that movie, and for some reason he was like,
well, she didn't
ashamed
recognize
of it or something. Yeah.
She should recognize it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know why, he made such a big deal out of it, but apparently he didn't want her to know. So
and Mike Judge has got it over him.
They were like, how much footage did you take of that guy's ass just for that? And he's like, too much.
Yeah. I called out sick the day that the Beavis and Butthead movie came out, like back in the 90s. Like I was like, I want to be one of the first people there, see the matinee. Like I had to
Do America?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be the first one to see it, and it was worth it.
That was.
I like that movie.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's so many people, I guess, don't get Beavis and Butthead, but they're just so hysterical to me.
I love them because they're so stupid, but the jokes are funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because it's a because it's a cartoon, you know,
Yeah.
you can be like, yeah, okay.
Sure, yeah, there's more leeway in animation, I think.
Yeah. I still watch it to this day and my wife can't stand it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
I don't want to say I'm not allowed, but I'm not allowed to watch it if she's home.
What about King of the Hill?
King of the Hill is awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
it's hysterical. Like,
Yeah.
I was watching it because our daughter was like, oh, I've never seen King of the Hill. Like, let's watch it. I'm like, yeah, I've seen some, but let's do it. And from the beginning of that first season, we were just like pissing our pants. It was so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great show.
Yeah. I got to get back into that because I don't think I've completed every episode.
I think I have them all.
Uh-huh.
I have all King of the Hill and then Beavis and Butthead. I have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That I still watch. I watch it when I'm in here working on the car.
Yeah, sure.
I'll put it on,
Yeah.
but I have the entire series with the music videos.
Oh.
So like when the Mike Judge collection first came out,
Mm-hmm.
because of licensing, they couldn't have any of the music videos and stuff in it. And so it was just the Beavis and Butthead episodes with no music.
Mm.
And they were only 15-minute episodes, right?
Sure,
So
cut
the
out.
stories, when you cut all that stuff out, are extremely short and they go really fast. And it's just not the same without their commentary on, you know, Pantera and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's kind of lame. So I got the one that has all of that stuff in it. So that's what makes it awesome, is because I'll be laying underneath my truck working on something.
Mm-hmm.
You've got music going, and then you're listening to them at the same time. And then I've seen it so many times that every time, you know, it gets back to the story, I'm just laughing my ass off. I'm not even watching it, but I can hear it.
Those are the guys that are the only time that I've ever heard the name of the group, Gwar.
Really?
It was because Beavis and Butthead talked about Gwar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the. So I'm like, what's Gwar? And I looked it up. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I was like their favorite band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though they had Metallica and AC/DC shirts.
Yeah. You've never been to a Garsh concert?
No.
Oh,
I
man.
mean, I don't even know if I got through one music video, like when I tried watching them, because it was really heavy metal, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't even know what you'd call it. It's more than heavy metal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have been to. There's this concert in the desert in India when we lived in the Coachella Valley, and it's outdoors where they have the Coachella Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's this outdoor. It's really like a polo grounds, right? So it's this huge, and they got these kind of like gigantic stables. So it's a good place for outdoor concerts. And it was like, I can't remember the third band, but like Megadeth and Metallica, right?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And I'm just standing there, never having seen Megadeth before, and I just feel if I had kidney stones, right, this music, the vibrations coming from this band would just bust them up into like sand, right? It's like so powerful, like your whole body is just shaking from that type of vibration. Yeah, it was a great concert. Unfortunately, the guy I was with, he is not used to like any type of THC, and he ate like too much of a brownie. So he was just like laying on the ground. Like he wouldn't even like, he's just like, dude, just don't.
Partied a little too hard.
You can't lay on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gross. Yeah. I wouldn't lay on the ground at a concert either.
That's how jacked up he was.
Especially wouldn't lay on the ground at a Gwar concert.
Oh, I can't imagine. Well, what you're describing sounded pretty crazy.
It usually is, yeah. Yeah, they get some pretty good mosh pits and stuff going.
Do you remember the first concert you ever went to?
Yeah, actually, the first concert that I ever went to, like real concert, was... I think it was either Kenny Chesney or... No, it was Brad Paisley up at Silver Mountain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I worked on... So my friend's grandfather, I worked with him refinishing his garage because he said he didn't need the garage. He built a new like shop out behind that, and so he wanted to turn the garage into a pool room.
Oh.
So I worked for him putting up drywall and painting and doing a whole bunch of stuff to turn it into a pool room for like an entire summer, and just saved, the little bit of money that he was paying me to help. Because I really wanted to take the girl I was dating at the time to a show. So I saved up all that money, bought us tickets, took her to see Brad Paisley. And I think it was actually both. I think it was Brad Paisley and Kenny Chesney were playing together. And it was, I thought it was a good show. Turns out she didn't really care for country music all that much, but she had fun. It was a good time, but it really wasn't her thing.
So that brings up the discussion. Like at what point during the courting phase do you bring up the subject of music? Is that the first? It's got to be first 3 dates, right?
I think it depends on, if you're a music person. Like if you are a music person, right? If that's something that you really hold close to you and you care about, not even just music. Pretty much anything. There should definitely be things that are discussed. If not the first date, then the second. Well,
I have to ask you, how do you define a music person? Because doesn't everyone listen to music? Music's everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't avoid music. Even if you didn't do anything, we go to church, you're singing hymns in church.
Let's put it this way. I remember like bands and songs and, albums and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people who are, way more into that than me. They know every album that they have on their, on their shelf of vinyl.
They know the names of the songs, what order they appear,
what year it came out, what studio it was recorded at. They know all of that stuff. So, to me, that's a music person. That is somebody who music is their life. Even if they can't hold a note and can't sing, they love music and they have all of it and they know about all of it. Then you have people that just like, they listen to music. Yeah, it makes the drive to work better, but they're not going to remember any of that stuff. It's not something they think about. It's just a thing that's kind of there. It's on the radio every day when they get in the car to go to work. They may like something, but they might not remember it. There's a lot of people like that too. That may not necessarily be, a music person, and that's fine, But then there are people who hate music.
There are people that hate music.
Yeah.
I don't think I've
only ever met one that I can think of, and I don't remember his name. It was just a passing thing.
But what do you remember about him that he hated music?
He just didn't like it.
He just said that out loud, like I hate music.
Yeah.
He'd probably never been to a concert, or doesn't even have a music app on his iPhone.
No. He might have been to a concert maybe at one point in his life. I don't know, but he just hated music. And it was mostly because he preferred silence over all.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's a rare bird, because we Americans hate silence. Right?
Right.
We always have to have something.
There has to be some kind of noise, white noise going on.
That's why it's a radical thing, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these self-improvement guys are like, spend 20 minutes in just silence in the morning. And it's like, that drives most people nuts.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Even if we're meditating, we have to have a meditation app, a voice guided, is guiding me with the meditation, right?
Yeah.
So it's not even complete silence.
Well, like my friend's grandfather, the one I was just talking about, working at the pool house for, his thing was, Willie Nelson, Waylon, Johnny Cash, but he was a huge Willie Nelson fan.
Okay.
Well, that guy, that's how he was. Taking a road trip with that guy was the most boring thing on the planet. Because you have to remember, this is back before we had smartphones and stuff where, we could just zone out and watch Netflix on the way to,
You're just playing I Spy.
Yeah.
Like through the back window.
Yeah.
Like, how long can
he was an old fuddy-duddy. He was an old hard-ass Navy man. He didn't talk a whole lot usually. When he did, it was gems. The stuff that came out of his mouth was usually all gold. But that's how he was. He would have the radio, it was either off or it was playing the one Willie Nelson song or tape that he had in the radio on repeat over and over and over again. Side A, side B, side A, side B. Till you got so tired of listening to it, you're like, please, can we have something else?
Yes.
Can you turn on the radio?
Where's
and he
the
would
guy?
just click, turn it off. Dead silence for the next 200 miles.
Yeah, wow. So you're used to silence. So silence doesn't freak you out like it does most of us.
We brought one of my friends. It was one of his grandsons or grandnephew, something like that. We went on a road trip, and he brought, it was a tape of something, and it was country, but it was newer country. And he was hoping that because it was still country, that Grandpa wouldn't mind. And so at one point, when Grandpa went into the gas station to get a cup of coffee, he switched out Willie Nelson with this other tape.
Grandpa's gonna freak.
Yeah, and he came back out, gets in the car, turns it on, and this starts playing, and he instantly hits eject. And as we're turning out of the gas station, he throws that shit out the window.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yep. And my friend was like, dude, come on, why? And he's like, if it ain't Willie and Waylon, it's shit.
Yeah. That's great. I don't know. That sounds still like a music lover to me. Even though he's got like only 2 guys that he likes, he still loved it.
Yeah. That dude could listen to Angel Too Close to the Ground so many times.
Yeah.
And I love Willie Nelson too, but
I mean, part of it is because even to this day, I'm still figuring out my wife's like musical tastes. Like she gets her idea on like one song, and then she'll just play the song over and over, that one song like over and over and over till it like burrows into like my head. And then like once it gets into my head, I'm like, why I hate that song.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That'll happen to me every once in a while. Like I'll get stuck on something. It just gets stuck in your head.
Yeah.
And then I'm on it for quite a while until I just can't stand to listen to it anymore. And then
the worst is like when I had those alarms that like would be attached to the radio, so the radio would wake you up, and they'd have like the worst song. Yeah. And I have freaking Madonna stuck in my head all day, and like that's horrible. Like something do something to purge it out. Oops, sorry. Like what do? You have to listen to another song on repeat or something.
Yeah. What's the worst song that you've ever had stuck in your head continuously?
It had to be a Madonna song, because that's why I thought of it. And I pick your pick. Like there's like your list. I don't know. Like a Virgin, probably something like that.
Or Material Girl.
Yeah, either one. I'm sure I've had both, because it's just like I had a crappy radio station on the radio. Yeah, that was probably a lot of my fault too. What about you? What's your worst song that's stuck in your head?
Oh man, what was it? It was that song "Sail."
Oh, by AWOL Nation?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have no idea why, but that came on the radio at one point it was when it first came out, and I was like, oh yeah. At first I was like, no, this sucks, but then it kind of grew on me, and I was like, okay, this isn't bad. And then I was listening to it, because it kept coming on the radio, and it grew on me, and then somehow it just burrowed its way into my skull, and for like 2 weeks straight, I was waking up in the morning singing that shit while trying to brush my teeth. And I was like, this has to stop.
So you might have been the guy they were trying to sell the car to, because I think that song made it to a car commercial.
Oh, so, yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, and so, because when I heard the song in the car commercial, I was like, wow, AWOL Nation like made it that big?
Yeah.
Because when I saw them, they were just like one band, I don't know, 6 or 7 groups from the top of the headlining list at Coachella. So I was like, okay, they got this one song, and it's a good song, but I didn't think they would be on a commercial. So once that happened, I'm like, oh, maybe it's good things for them. I have no idea what they're doing now, because I never really followed them.
Huh. I've never been to Coachella. I've heard it's awesome, but then I also, there's always...
It's jumped the shark at this point.
I always hear jokes about it.
Yeah, it's jumped the shark. I mean, it was awesome once upon a time, but I think it's now, that term, right? Jump the shark.
No.
Oh, so it's a phrase that I've heard, and usually when it's referring to TV, jump the shark means that it's like, it's over. It's like so passé. It's like, I guess the example they used was like when Dumb and Dumber came out with Dumb and Dumber 2, they kind of like jumped the shark, like it's done. And it comes from this sitcom called Happy Days. Right?
Oh yeah, I know Happy Days.
So Happy Days, they had this episode where Fonzie is going to water ski over this ramp and jump over the sharks, right? There's the sharks that are in this water. And so after Happy Days did that, it was never the same. Like the show just started going downhill tremendously until it finally had to wrap up, right? So they've used like the jump the shark. So like in these, modern TV shows, it's like, is this a jump the shark type of situation, right? Huh. So that's why you kind of reminded me of that.
That was one of my mom's favorite TV shows.
Happy Days? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we used to watch Happy Days and MASH
Oh, yeah.
on the regular.
Most watched episode ever was the final episode of MASH, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
was a
saw
great
that one.
show. And all that's available now on Hulu if you want to rewatch it, which my wife did. She likes this old stuff.
Oh, really?
Mary Tyler Moore and MASH. She went through all that.
I get into some Mary Tyler Moore. See, I grew up on that stuff.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I'm not even that old. I'm, 37?
Yeah, I don't know how you grew up on this stuff. Cause
Yeah, I'm one of the last
my time
generations before cell phones really became a thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But, well, most of that comes from, I mean, half the time we didn't have cable. You know, we just had bunny ears. Or the local TV stations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, UHF and VHF.
Yeah. So we had one of the stations on there. It's like TV Land or something. You know, it plays all the old stuff.
Yeah.
So like the old, like the Munsters, the original Addams Family series, you know, Mary Tyler Moore. I mean, all of that stuff.
Brady Bunch. You ever watch that?
Yeah. Brady Bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we had. So it was like, well, I could either watch nothing and go outside and play, or I don't feel like going outside and play, so I guess I'm going to watch this.
Yeah. Yeah, you watch what's available.
Yeah, we had cable in spurts. There'd be like a year, you know, where, because my mom, she ran her own business, you know, doing computer stuff and things like that. And there were some years she did really good. Some years, not so much. You know, I don't know how she did it, but she always, like, at least I didn't. I don't know how my brother feels about it, but we never felt poor.
Mm-hmm.
There was always food in the fridge. And if my friends came over, you know, they were always eating. Like, I don't know how my mom raised us two teenagers and all of our friends, and we didn't all starve. I have no idea. You know, but she kept the rent paid, she kept the lights on. I mean, I'm sure that woman worked her ass off, and I just was too young to realize it. Right. You know, so every once in a while there'd be a good year, and she would get cable, get it turned on, you know, and we could watch, you know, Nick at Night and stuff like that.
So one of my friends, his parents were, I mean, they did pretty well for themselves, right? So when I went to his house, like the furniture seemed like bigger and more antique-y, and it was just decorated more nicely, and they seemed more almost like the country club type people, right? And their house is very nice. But I remember this big deal. There was this square box that only had one knob on it, right? And the knob would turn from off to like these big colored letters called on. And that was the name of the cable, On TV. Right? That was something that was marketed in LA. Get On TV. That was like before cable, right? Where there's multiple channels. There was only one channel. It was like On
it was
TV.
On.
So you turned it on. And the first thing I remember seeing on was, I think, Michael Jackson's Thriller. Like when that music video came out, it was like such a huge deal because it was like a mini movie, right? When he's doing like that whole like zombie dancing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember like they turned it on, and then like Michael Jackson's film, like, wow, that was like you know, everyone's going to be turning on the TV so they can watch that. It was like such a big deal. I look back on it, it's like much larger than it probably actually was, like the whole experience, right? They only have one channel to turn on. That was freaky.
It makes me think of like Chinese state-run media.
Yeah.
You only have the one channel. You click the TV on, and you can watch what's on, or you can turn it off.
Well, I mean, it's not. It looks like we have multiple different channels now, but they're all saying the same thing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's or like a Orwellian. You know,
absolutely.
Where all the TVs are listening to everybody. They can. It basically only has the one channel, and you know, every certain times of the day you have the the hate hour.
The hate hour.
Yeah, where it just talks about the one dude that everybody hates, and Oceana's fighting against them, and then but you can't ever turn it off unless you work for the government, you know, and you're one of the higher ups, and then you can turn it off, but only for a little while. If you turn it off for too long, then they're going to start to think that you're, you know, a conspirator or, you know.
So that reminds me of something you said earlier about how people are trying to rewrite history because it's like too triggering to them, right? So when you're reminding me that the real control is how to control your own emotions and triggers when the environment you have no control over. So
Right.
you have to watch this monitor, this TV, and like, why don't respond to it? Don't let it soak in and like brainwash you, right?
Yeah.
It might trigger you, but then like control like how you react to it. So like you're just acting, you're playing along like, yeah, that TV's there, but you're not letting it in. But these people that want to be coddled, right? They're like so worried about everything triggered. Like, dude, get control of your own life.
Yeah.
Why are you so triggered? Like, if I really was going to love my neighbor, what would I want for that neighbor, even though there's a stranger? I would want you to have as much control as possible over your triggers and every other thing about your life, right? I don't want to control your life.
Yeah.
I would want for you what I want for myself, and that is to get control, right? And that's probably going to be a lifelong project, Dave. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to reach total control over like what's not going to trigger me and what's going to trigger me.
Yeah. I don't know that anybody ever does, really.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And I'm sure there's some people out there who can, but
But I would want that person to be like, we're going to talk about Christopher Columbus today, okay? And they're not running for the hills because they're so triggered because of all the things they think about is like bad. It's like, we're going to examine it. Deal with your trigger. Deal with your trigger, dude. That's not my problem. Like, this is a historic figure that we need to discuss, right? We need to examine. I'm not worried about your trigger, right? Like, people are so, it's become so ridiculous.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm as thin-skinned as the next guy, but I mean, at least my skin's getting a little bit thicker. I'm not going to tell anyone to modify what they say or how they behave because of me, right? That would be someone editing me, right? I don't want you to edit yourself. I want you to be genuine, because like, what's the purpose of the interaction, right?
What's the thing though is it takes a lot less brain power, and it's far easier to just play victim and blame your problems on everybody else than it does to just say, yeah, okay, I screwed up. I've made some bad choices, or, you know, or even just to be able to disregard things, you know, and to just not let it bother you. Like, that's what I don't understand is if you're clicking through channels, right, and you see something that you don't like, well, you can just change the channel.
Keep clicking.
Yeah. Which some might argue that puts you into, you know, a tunnel. You know, if you're constantly changing the channel so that you don't have to see stuff you don't like, then you get put into this tunnel.
Sure, that's the path to the echo chamber.
The echo chamber, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. But yeah, you get stuck in an echo chamber of only hearing the stuff you want to hear. And so if you're never confronted with stuff that you don't want to hear, you know, then you get so comfortable, you know, and you get stuck in your echo chamber, and you always think you're right, and you're never forced to think about anything else, you know, and other points of view and stuff that contradicts your beliefs or, you know, everything that you've been taught.
I mean, how strong are your beliefs if they've never been challenged?
Yeah.
You've never been given the opportunity by your own decision to examine those things that you believe and possibly strengthen your belief in them.
Yeah.
Right. Or drop stuff that you don't need that's not serving you anymore. Right. Change your mind about certain things.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. You and me have pretty similar, you know, outlooks on a lot of things, I think. But I mean, I would never be opposed to sitting down and having a conversation with somebody who doesn't think the way that I do. As long as they can have a conversation, as long as they can sit down and they can say, hey, look, these are the things that I were taught. This is what I believe, blah, 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 yada, yada. And then I go, okay, well, this is what I'm on, you know, let's talk this out.
And here lies the rub, because that's presupposing the existence of logic and reason as the parameters or unwritten, unspoken rules of the exchange, right? Because what's been turned into is logic and reason is just another white man's social construct. It's that we should disregard, right? So once they do that, then it's like, okay, they could be, right? We can't even agree on the rules to our exchange.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to say something that you don't like, and you're going to call me a racist or sexist or whatever, and it's going to be over. So it's like, right?
Because that's the ultimate bomb to lob.
Right.
Oh, you're racist.
We're just going to run from that.
I just don't agree with you.
Right, exactly. So that leads me to a question that I've probably asked you before, and I'm still working on the answer myself, and that is, what would be, if you just met this stranger, you kind of like the cut of their jib, you overheard them, their voice sounds good. You didn't actually hear what they said, but it's like, this would be a great guy of the podcast. But you need to ask him one question before you figure out even, whether or not you would want him to be on the podcast, right? Like, what would be that question to determine whether or not it's worth any more of your time to continue to engage with this other person? What I always wonder, right? Because conspiratorial minds think one way, other people think the other way. Like, maybe it's just all like political, like, what party do you vote for, or whatever. Some people think it's a religious way. Whatever would be the question to decide for yourself, okay, this guy's worth talking to.
See, I don't know if it'd be even just a specific question, but somebody that, I can sit down with and have an engaging conversation with, that isn't instantly, like you were just saying, like, oh, well, that's racist, or something like that. Like, okay, but instead of just lobbing that out there, instead of just going straight into the whole defense mechanism, can you give me some thoughts? Why are you feeling the way you're feeling right now about this? And let me in. Because that's the basis of having a discussion, is we may not see eye to eye on something. And at the end of the day, we may not change each other's minds. You may still believe what you believe and I believe what I believe, and we end up going our separate ways. But if we can still agree to disagree, instead of just saying, well, I'm right and you're wrong and you're a piece of shit and I don't ever want to talk to you again because you don't believe what I believe. Well, no, like, we don't have to agree on everything, and it's never going to happen. And I think that's what a lot of people, if not everyone, has forgotten. It used to be, as far as I can tell, we've always had, liberals or progressives or whatever, and you've always had conservatives, Republicans. There's always been two or more sides to the entire story. But it seems to me that, back in the day, people were still able to get along with each other, and they were able to disagree and have disagreements and just continue on with life. They were able to say, like, I just don't understand your way of thinking, but I respect your right as an American to think the way that you think, and let's move on.
And I'm actually into the human connection because I'm reaching out to try and understand your way of thinking.
Yeah.
Right. Present it to me as it works in your own mind.
Right.
And let me see if I can put on your glasses for a temporary period and say, like, oh, now I understand based on your history, your family, where you grew up. Now I see how you view this issue from this particular angle. Right. Because where I came up, I'm looking at it from a totally different spot. Right. But no, they don't want that, or they don't have the capacity, some of them, because they need to be told, like, well, let me put it on MSNBC again and see what the talking head said to tell me, right? So they don't even have the capacity to create their own, organic ideas.
Instead of seeing everything directly through your echo chamber of CNN and MSNBC,
Right.
I mean, even Fox,
absolutely.
they do it too.
That's like all the same.
Personally, I think that they're a little bit wiser, but I mean, they're all owned by the same companies. They still do just crazy, stupid shit. But instead of being locked into, just that one lane of, information and traffic, on top of social media, on top of all of that stuff, and then sitting behind your keyboard, just mindlessly punching away like, well, you're wrong and you're stupid and I'm not going to stop until you admit that you're stupid. Like, really? Dude, don't you have better shit to do? How about you guys go out for coffee, sit down, and have a chit chat? Well, why do you feel this way? Why do you think that? What has this person done, or what has your side of the coin done to make you think a certain way or believe whatever's going on? Have you ever stopped to look at other points of view? Or do you just believe everything you're fed and go, oh, okay?
Yeah, well, it's clearly the latter, because they've been told or they've decided which quote team they want to be on.
Yeah.
And then every team's got their own little merchandise, if you will. If you're on the liberal team, you're watching MSNBC, right? And you're believing all the heads on there, whatever. So I think that they've decided. It's what's that old quote? It's like, don't confuse me. My mind's made up. Don't confuse me with the facts. Type of thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's like I've already made up my mind.
Yeah.
I'm not open to like any information. And a lot of the brains now, I think, are really under a huge amount of stress from fear, right? So fear has just got so many brains locked out. So it's like trying to give them information that might persuade them to think differently. It's like trying to hack a password, right, on a very tough, like, a computer system. That's a metaphor I can come up with, because you can present them all this information, right? Because when this whole COVID thing started, I'm just like, okay, this is nonsense. I got numbers, I got reports, I got people backing me up. Like, you got to examine this, right? Because this is before the vaccine came out. Because I was like, don't take this thing. I know it's coming out. It's gonna, and it just fell on deaf ears, even for people that I've known since 4th grade. And then I started realizing this is agitating me. So why am I going to bother agitating myself? The information's out there, right? If you're interested enough that you want to go and research it yourself, you can. But you know what? My conscience is clear because I tried, right? But at this point, you're on your own. I mean, I still love you. I can consider you like brothers, but it's like, there's no way I can persuade you. I think your brain's just locked out from fear.
I think it's best going into any conversation without the intent of trying to persuade.
Good point.
Because that's when you've already lost, I think. When you go into a conversation with anybody with, I'm going to change their mind because I'm right and they're wrong, then you've already lost the argument. Because at that point, you're just preaching and you're trying to tell people that you know better.
Right. By definition,
we're all guilty of it.
Yeah,
we all do it.
And by definition, it's not even a conversation. It's more like a lecture.
Yeah. Yeah. And by that reason, you're doing exactly what you don't want them to do.
Good point.
Like I said, we all do it. I mean, I don't know if it's just a human nature thing, but I really try. And I'm not a people person. I don't talk to people much. I'm trying to get better at it. Yeah. That's kind of the purpose of this whole thing, right?
You're going into acting then. Acting like a people person.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I should work in Hollywood.
Yeah, I'm guilty of it, like way more than I should be, right? So,
yeah,
I'm thinking, I got something to say, so this person's going to hear it, whether they want to or not. Instead of like tapping into, my curiosity about them, right, and wanting to get to know them, and like screw whatever agenda I may have had on my mind, coming into it. It's not important.
Yeah. Well, there's that old saying, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one and they all fucking stink.
Indeed. I like the second part. It usually ends like just like everyone's got one, the one I've heard.
Yeah.
I forgot about the stink part. That's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, going into any conversation, if you go into it without the intent of trying to persuade somebody, and you're just free thinking and you're going into it like, hey, this is me. And this is why I think this way. And these are the things that I've seen. And especially if you can present facts and stuff. But then again, where are those facts coming from? Right?
Right. Sources that I find credible, but perhaps you don't.
Exactly. Because their sources might be MSNBC. They might be like, oh, well, Sanjay Gupta said blah, blah, blah. Sure. And you're like, fuck that guy.
Yeah. I have Sanjay Gupta on Rogan's show. Did you talk about that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't see that episode, but I heard it.
Oh, it's great. Rogan took him kind of to the woodshed. It's like your station's basically lying.
Yeah, and then he backed down.
He did for a little bit, and of course, like the next day, like there's this whole hubbub and whatever. Like he said something on the CNN, like when just he's a total pussy.
Yeah, and that was over the entire horse dewormer shit, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, ivermectin. Like Joe took it and he was fine in a day. And then even CNN like changing the filter color like on his like thing. I mean, the stuff that they get busted for is just so.
Well, and even Joe says, a million times a day, he's like, look, I'm a moron. I don't know anything. Don't listen to me. He's like, but I am going to tell you what I did that I believe worked.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do with your life. I can't tell you what to do for your health. But this is what I did, and these are the things I took, and I can tell you I don't know if it was a combination of all of them or if it was any one thing, but I felt crappy for 2 days, and then I was back in the gym, felt great. No problems.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if you show up to the hospital, you'll be put on a ventilator, on remdesivir, like your kidneys will be shut down and you'll be dead.
Yeah.
And that's because the hospital's getting a bump, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, whatever happened to follow the money? You know, it's like everyone's just deciding they're not going to follow the money. And that's one of the things that I find so, I don't know if it's ironic or somewhat funny, that the people that are so into equality, right? And they basically want a Marxist, like communist rule of the world. They didn't say anything when this whole lockdown nonsense like caused the greatest transfer of wealth ever in history.
Yeah.
Right? All the billionaires got solely. I thought they were against billionaires. I thought Bernie Sanders was like millionaires and billionaires. You know, we're going to tax them out of existence, right? I mean,
That's a good impression.
I mean, and yet they don't say a thing. Like they're all happy that like Bezos got like richer, and Zuckerberg and all of them. So,
yeah, everybody's sitting at home spending far too much time on the internet and ordering everything from Amazon because they got extra money from the unemployment or whatever.
And they can't go to mom and pop down the block because they're closed.
Yep.
Because that's where it spreads, apparently. Yeah. So I don't know I don't even know, where was I going with this? Or where were we going with this?
Yeah, I don't know.
We're talking about communicating, trying to get into the perspective of someone else rather than just like dictating like your own points of view and trying to.
Instead of preaching, going into any conversation more open-minded, and instead of trying to change somebody's mind or having the intent of changing somebody's mind, just going in and talking.
Yes.
That's the problem, is nobody talks anymore.
Exchange of information. Yeah. There's all texting or posting, or it's all one.
The only people exchanging information anymore is Alexa or Amazon and Google.
Sure. Exchanging it with the NSA.
Yeah.
Yeah, a conversation. There was someone who commented on that. I don't know if it was Andy Frisella. It might have been his podcast, because he's kind of, he's almost, I don't know if you've ever heard him, but he's kind of like almost a mini Joe Rogan. He curses way more than Rogan does, but I think he was bringing up the point that there is no interaction, right? There's no conversation equivalent on social media when they're just like a post, a statement, another post. It's not even like you're observing a text exchange. It's just an awkward way of communicating. No one's together simultaneously on the same page, right, in real time. It's all that type of communication, and I think he attributes what's rotting our society to the core is stuff like that, right?
Yeah, human beings are not designed to communicate that way. We're not. We're designed to do, what we're doing right here, sitting face to face, talking, having a conversation about, God knows what. Yeah. We've gone off on like 10 million different tangents, but still, I find it interesting.
Yeah.
But sitting in front of a screen and with absolutely no kickback, it's one thing to sit at a desk and write in a journal and put down all the stuff where you're like, oh, this happened today. Or even the stuff that you didn't like, where you had a bad day and you want to write about the lady at the checkout that was rude to you or whatever, or at least that's how you perceived it. Mm-hmm. And you get all that stuff out on paper, and then, maybe you feel better, maybe you don't. That's essentially what you're doing on social media, on Facebook, mm-hmm. is you're journaling, mm-hmm. but the entire world is reading your diary. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, people have taken that diary and now all they do is put diarrhea in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well done. Diarrhea and diary. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to your earlier point, that's not how humans are made to do it, right?
Yeah.
That's not the real human form of communication. But if you're like the nefarious, globalist types, and you want everyone divided and conquered, well, then everything's going according to plan.
Yeah.
Because people aren't meeting up. In Australia, people were saying like things like, if you see your neighbor at the store with your mask on, make sure to stay 6 feet away and don't stop and talk. Just keep going and keep shopping. Yeah. They're just telling you, forget all your human connections, right? And the human connections during this whole thing, think about marriages where the wife saw things one way and the husband saw things the other, right? Or even like, father, son, brother, sister, like this whole thing became a political issue, right? if people were really dying left and right, and that was all happening to this alleged virus, then people wouldn't be worried about like it being a political issue. They'd have like stuff to be doing, like digging graves, right? And like trying to basically survive, just live.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't the case at all, right? I mean, one number that, I mean, I'm not good at math either, but I can look at the population, however they determine it, and to notice that it actually had an uptick in 2020 during like the worst freaking like, you know, virus pandemic known to mankind. That makes you go, that's interesting. I would think that a pandemic would decrease the population, but then of course they redefine the term pandemic, right?
Yeah, it's not, it's not what it was.
You were talking about rewriting history. Now they're redefining words.
Yeah.
Right? What's a recession? Oh, that got redefined recently
Yes,
too,
it
right?
did. Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah, what did they call it? What did they change it to? Because they didn't like the word recession.
yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember.
A bump in the road, a
Yeah,
speed bump.
pretty
I don't know
much.
what they call it.
Yeah, you can dress it up and call it whatever you want. I mean, you can wrap a turd in gold leaf. It's still a turd.
Right. Exactly. Like, what's the definition of recession? Okay. What's the definition of a woman? Right.
That's a
you
good
see
one.
that? You see that documentary? That was just,
Yeah.
There was one part. I don't even remember Martin Short from like Saturday Night Live, like way back when. There was this one where it was almost like a 60 Minutes. He's smoking a cigarette and he's all nervous and he's like looking at the camera like, it's not me, it's him, right? It's not. This one professor in What Is a Woman by Matt Walsh, that documentary, he reminded me of that Martin Short character. So when I think most people watch this and they're getting like triggered and getting upset by like all these like liberal professors and whatever they're talking about, like at that point, because I triggered that memory, I was just laughing. I just thought that was just beyond, right? Because at some point, what are you doing to yourself? If you're getting all triggered, right, by these people that are just saying stuff that like men can get pregnant, right? Then, right, exactly. It's healthier for you as an individual to laugh at it.
Yeah.
But that's how they're taking it very seriously, right? To them, it's like, yeah, Google, can men get pregnant? Like, yeah.
I wonder, I bet we would. That whole can men get pregnant thing. I guarantee we'd find something interesting.
Oh, yeah, from Google? Oh, sure. It's like, are we in a recession? No, but can men get pregnant? Yeah. That's why I'm just so grateful that English is my first language. I couldn't imagine trying to come here from another country. You know, in most other languages where the words themselves have like genders, right? So it's like either a masculine or feminine word to like pair like the article with it. Like,
Oh, yeah, like
Roman
Spanish.
something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very easy. Oh, so that congresswoman, she basically trolled the liberals on Twitter who weren't aware that what was Biden's like one of his recent gaffes, like, you know, I got 2 words, made in America. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, so he says like, I got 2 words, made in America, right? And so everyone's making fun of him like, that's 3 words. So she on the internet says, I got 2 words, let's go Brandon. And so then all the blue check liberals would be like, that's 3 words. Like, you know, God, she's so dumb. She doesn't even know that's 3 words. Like, and they're all like criticizing her, not realizing that their idol.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Is this a joke?
Can men get pregnant?
That's the one that
Which one?
the
With the
Supreme
guy?
Court.
Oh, here.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that one. But the Supreme Court, she's like, I'm not a biologist. Like, you're going to rule. If you're not a biologist, then it's not important that you're a woman being appointed to the Supreme Court because you can't define what a woman is. Yeah, I don't remember.
Is it like you can't do the job or
Scanlon said
something?
a few minutes ago that,
Yeah.
that this hearing is called because of an imminent peril to the right of abortion. Professor Goodwin, I guess you're the only witness presented by the majority as having expertise in the law.
I don't know if I've
Oh,
seen
this is.
Do you
these things are painful to
unequivocally
watch.
condemn
Yeah, well, this is going into the whole, abortion
absolutely
stuff.
unprecedented.
I mean, that's a whole
There will be,
other argument in and of itself.
It is a story. It is not the story of these hearings, but that is unprecedented.
No, I didn't. I'm aware it's unprecedented. That's factual. Many people have covered.
But the good thing about that abortion ruling, whatever your issue on abortion is, because some people would argue that we're actually living now in like a post-constitution society, right? The First Amendment is like out the window. Second
Yeah.
Amendment, they're coming after, right? So you go down the list. But the fact that the Supreme Court actually enforced, I mean, for lack of a better term, the 10th Amendment, like saying that essentially abortion's not in the Constitution, except for possibly under the 10th Amendment, meaning if it's not written here, it's up to the states or the people themselves. So go ahead, states, have at it, right? So California, Newsom's going to Florida, running ads in Florida like, hey, come to California and get your abortion.
Oh,
right?
are you talking about them doing away with Roe v. Wade?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so I thought that's interesting. That applies to, I mean, how many issues aren't mentioned in the original Constitution? I think that was by design, because those brilliant framers, founders, like, knew that there's going to be so much stuff that comes up that we don't know about right now. Like, and let that be the states or the people decide, right? There's only very few things that should be in the federal government. Meanwhile, it's a couple centuries later, it's the exact opposite. The federal government is doing everything, right?
Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes to all the stuff with the Second Amendment and how, everybody's, the right to keep and bear arms and all that, which I personally believe in. But, the liberals want to come back and they want to say, well, back then they didn't know anything about automatic weapons. So how could they possibly have known, what was going to come in the future? Like, okay, well, maybe they purposely left it a little bit vague because, they're not morons. They knew about Industrial Revolution, right? That things were always changing. Mm-hmm. There was always something better coming on the horizon. So, maybe that's why they wrote it the way they wrote it. Because if they were to just simply write it as the right to keep and bear muskets,
right?
Well, yeah, that kind of narrows it down, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So, it's all open to interpretation, but yeah, it's, you can sit there and you can say, well, the Constitution doesn't cover abortion and all this other stuff. Like, maybe not, maybe it does. It all depends on how you read it. But at the end of the day, if anything is certain as far as I'm concerned, what you do with your body is your own choice. Mm-hmm. Now, if anybody wants to know my own personal opinion on abortion, I don't think that it should just be handed out like Tic Tacs. I think if, my daughter were to get raped and she becomes pregnant, I think it should be her choice whether she wants to keep it. You want to talk about being triggered? Yeah, maybe there's some people who don't want to keep a baby from a situation like that, and they shouldn't have to. Mm-hmm. But I also do believe that it creates this social environment where there are no consequences for anything. And going back to, social media and everything else, and people not being designed to communicate that way, that's part of it. People say whatever the hell they want, just horrible, awful, mean shit all over the internet because they're not sitting in front of a person. Mm-hmm. You're not seeing the person's face that you're saying that to. That's what we are designed to do, is to communicate in that way. I can look at you and the things that I say to you, I can see in your face, mm-hmm. Whether or not you're responding to it and how. Okay, well, that's how we're designed to communicate. It's not just words. It's not just flapping your gums. It's a face-to-face interaction. That's what works the best. So when you talk about sending text messages or emails or whatever, like, that's a great communication for the mundane, for just, what do you want for dinner tonight?
Right. Coffee at Coffee Meister at 9.
Yeah.
Just like you're just conveying actual information.
That's all you're doing is the conveyance of info, but it is not meant to have drawn out, deep, heartfelt talks about anything. Mm-hmm. But that's what people use it for now, is everything. And that's one of the main things that I try to tell people that I meet, that I know of that are struggling with relationship problems and stuff like that. Don't talk about it on text. Stop it. Mm-hmm. Because when you get angry, you're going to say stuff that you don't mean,
and you don't want it in black and white there.
Yeah. Or you're going to say something in a text that maybe you don't mean it to be mean, but it might come off that way because of your state of mind at that moment. Or the person who you're saying it to, because of their state of mind at the moment, may perceive it that way. You have to remember that too. It's not just you, it's the state of mind of the other person that you're talking to.
Absolutely. Think about how many sentences that if you just read them on a page with your voice inflection and emphasis on any particular word. You didn't tell me that the shop was closed tonight. You didn't tell me that the shop. You didn't tell me that the shop was closed. So if you're just reading this as a text, there's the person who's open to interpret it, who's receiving it, right? So they can totally misconstrue what your intention was.
Yeah, there's no sound, there's no inflection of voice, so you can't hear what that person is trying to say. What really? You can't see their face, so you can't tell, if maybe their brow is up and they got a cracking a little smile, like it's like,
That's
he's just joking. It's a joke. He doesn't, whatever. He's fucking with me. You can't tell that. So, don't do anything other than what time you're going to be ready.
We're going to have a conversation in the living room at 6 tonight, right? That's it. That's all you can communicate. That's all you should communicate through text, right?
Yeah.
And then that's when you have it is at the conversation. That's when you communicate.
Yeah.
I think people are like losing the abilities to do it, right? I mean, are they even teaching like any type of communication in school? I mean, my only hope is that like the poker world still seems to be pretty popular because those people are communicating without saying a lot, right?
Yeah.
They can read each other's body languages, their tells and all that stuff. So that's still kind of cool human communication that has to take place.
Yeah.
I don't know how online poker works, but...
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I'm assuming somewhat similar to real poker, but I'm sure the betting is different.
Yeah, and how you're going to read like a computer, like,
Yeah.
The cool thing about live poker is that they're always like taking a look at each other with their sunglasses.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, just a funny story. I went to Coeur d'Alene Casino.
Okay.
Years and years ago. I think I was just after I turned 21, 22. And it was me and my girlfriend at the time and another friend of ours. And they didn't have, and I don't think they still do. I don't think that casino has any like real tables, but they used to have this like this round row of, they were blackjack tables, but it was all video blackjack. So you had the table itself was a giant screen. And then in front of you behind that was another giant screen that had a dealer on it. Like
a video of a dealer.
Yeah. It was a recorded thing. It was kind of creepy. It was cool, but it was really creepy at the same time. And the weird thing is that, how in a real casino, they rotate dealers. So, I don't know how long the intervals are. I mean, it's, a half hour.
Sometimes they seem like 2 seconds.
Yeah. And you never know, unless you've been there a while, if it's going to be a good dealer or a shitty dealer is going to take all your money. But they did that. So even though it's a video, it would still rotate. And they always rotated to the left. So every half hour, it would, the video dealer, after the end of whatever round you were in, if it was time for them to rotate, then you could hear them all too, because they're all in a row. So all the video dealers would stop and they would do the thing where they show their hands. They would say, time to rotate. And then they would all rotate to the left. And it was super creepy.
Yeah, that is a little creepy.
So we were there one night playing, for hours. And I've always had a thing where I only take enough to the casino that I'm willing to lose. I look at it as a ticket to Disneyland. You pay your $90 or whatever. Once it's gone, it's gone. Right? You don't get to go back and buy another ticket.
No.
My friend, not so much. He was a pretty smart dude, but...
He's gone to the ATM several times.
Yeah, he went to the ATM several times. And I don't know what it was about this one video dealer, but he was getting so pissed at this video dealer because he kept losing. And I was like, dude, it's a video game.
Yeah.
Like, what? Just let it go. Stop playing. Go hit a slot machine or something for a while. Like, but every time it would rotate, he'd cash out and he'd move to the next table because he wanted to keep playing that dealer and he wanted to try and he's so pissed. He's like, I got to beat this son of a bitch. I'm like, dude, okay.
It didn't really work.
That's how they got you. They got you. Just say they got you and move on.
You wouldn't be the first. They get almost everybody, right?
Like, you're talking about, going back to communication, and being in front of somebody and talking. Like, it's not a real dealer, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a program.
But you're becoming programmed to believe it's a real dealer.
Yeah, kind of.
That's the worst part.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my signs to leave the table. Like when they switch dealers.
Yeah.
Like, so if I'm up, whatever, even if I'm up, like, and I'm on a roll, like, that's fine. I'm leaving. I don't like new dealers. So it's like, let's go. Let's take a walk around. I mean, I'm usually in a place where there's something to see besides just the blackjack table.
Yeah.
Right. And then I have the 3 strikes and I'm out. So if I lose 3 hands in a row, afternoon, leave the table. So it's like, yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, because you need to do something to break the momentum.
Go take a leak, get another drink.
Bad. Yeah.
Get ready to lose more money.
Walk around. Yeah. Just listen to the slot machines. Look at all the people that are probably in worse situations than you. Like the old lady with the walker that's like smoking, that's like been playing that same slot like for hours and hours. You're like, geez, I'm glad that's not me.
Yeah, there's so many of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, they live there.
I mean, it's just like, how much dopamine do you have left in your brain? I mean, you're just like been milking it all day. It's got to be dried up.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of them though that's how they make a living.
Yeah,
like,
that's
they're really good at it.
I wonder like how they do that. I mean, how are you good at it? You just know which machines to play. You're like keeping track of like what's paying out. I mean, how do you get good at slots?
I have watched so many videos and skimmed through a couple of books on like
there's
gambling.
actually...
There is, and people want to say that like slot machines, it's all luck. There is no way to actually beat them. It's just you're there at the right time, and so in a way that's true, but what people don't account for is that the machines, they have to pay out a certain amount. Every single machine, like you want to talk about machines being rigged. Well, they kind of are, but they have to pay out a certain amount. I can't remember if it's every hour or every day that they have to pay out a certain amount.
And this is they have to according to what, state law or something?
Yes, according to state law. And I don't know. I mean, I would have to imagine that the laws are different. You know, varying by state or by tribe or whatever. But yeah, they have to pay out a certain amount either per hour or per day. So they are rigged to do that. The way the reels move is just with random number generators because it's all computerized now. Even the ones that look like the old school ones that have actual reels in them, they're still electronic and they work the same way.
Right.
So
that's why you don't have to pull the thing anymore. You just push the button.
You just push a button. Yeah, but it's the same thing. It has a random number generator that just says, 5, 2, 4, and that's the reels are just spinning so that you get the feeling, the illusion of, oh yeah, what's it going to land on?
Sure.
It knows the instant you push the button what it's going to pick. So it doesn't even matter. I mean, that's why you can sit there all day and you can just keep pushing the button and roll, stop, roll, stop, roll, stop, roll, stop. It doesn't matter. But as far as the machines being tight or loose, yes, that does change, but it's not what people think it is. Like, I used to think the same way, that it's controlled by some eye in the sky in a control room, and they can just instantly flip a switch and the machines are going to get tight now and they're not going to pay out as much. No, the machines do it on their own and they go by how much they've paid out in a certain amount of time. So what we figured out, and this only works, in the places around here, I mean, we've tried it in Vegas. No, we lose our shirts. It's for some reason it doesn't work there, and maybe it doesn't work because of the amount of traffic. That might change it.
Okay.
But what we look for is the group. So anytime you go into like Coeur d'Alene Casino or Northern Quest or something, if you go in there at certain times of day, you'll see a huge flock of full-timers and and old folks and stuff that are all playing usually together, and they may not even know each other, but they always congregate for some reason. You'll see just two rows of these people that are all playing together, and so if you watch them, they'll kind of just move all together. They'll move to the next row over and the next row over and the next row over, and they go in just a round robin. So if you pay attention and you wait,
you follow them.
Yeah,
because they prime the machine with all the losses.
Yeah,
so the wins are ready.
Exactly.
To happen.
So if you just sit at the bar and you hang back, watch the game for a little bit, maybe a half hour, 40 minutes, have a couple of drinks, and you watch the flock move. If you then, when you're ready to play, you go and play like 3-4 rows behind them, and at that point, those machines, they were played hard for a while and they stopped paying out. But now the machines over there are being played hard, and they're paying out.
Same thing.
But they're starting to tighten up, and the flock is going to move again another 2 rows. But you're coming behind them, and you're now hitting the machines that they played earlier that are now back hot again.
Right. After the tightening up period.
Yeah. So if you just pay attention to that and you follow it, and then usually what we'll do is, so we'll usually take $100 each. And so you start with a 20 and you go in and you follow that rule of, X amount of rows behind the flock, and you go in and you never play the end machines. If the machines all the way on the end by the aisle, they get played the hardest all day, every day, because you have every tourist and their grandfather walking through.
I'll just say I gambled. Here's my quarter.
Yeah, they throw in a 5 and they push the button. I mean, they all do it, and so those ones get played so hard. Never play the machines on the end because they're always the worst. They never pay because they pay all day because everybody's playing them all day. So if you go for the ones more towards the middle, you stay behind the flock, and then you put in a 20 and you play that 20, and then if you get X amount more, or you could do it on a time limit or however you want, when you're up so much, and then it starts, I think I have a 5-hit rule. So once I get up so much, if it starts hitting where I've gone 5 times and I don't get jack shit, or I don't make at least my bet back, then I cash out.
You're out. Okay.
Yep, I'm out. And then we just do, like, we have the favorite machines that we like to play, like, Da Vinci Diamonds or whatever, blah, blah, blah. We just take turns picking. So I picked one, and so after we cash out because we're not getting anything, then she'll pick the next one, and then I'll pick the next one, and that's just how we roll. That's how we do it. And like I said, it works here, but it doesn't work in Vegas. Every time we've tried, we lose our ass.
Okay.
But we've gone to like Northern Quest, and one night I think we started at like 8, and we were up until 2-3 in the morning playing and just drinking and having a good time. We made enough that night to cover all of our gaming, dinner, the hotel we were staying at, because we weren't staying there. We were staying in another place down the street. It also paid our mortgage, our car payment, and something else for that month, plus like $600 extra. Like,
wow, that's a good night.
We won a lot.
That's great.
Yeah,
and that was all employing the strategy you just mentioned.
Yeah. Yep.
So it sounds like slots are your go-to game when you go into a casino. You prefer to go to slots than like
if there's no real tables. Yeah.
If there are real tables, what would you go to?
Blackjack.
Okay.
Yeah. Blackjack's my game, even though I'm not very good at it. Like, I still try, unless there's a Spanish 21 table. That's a different story. If there's a Spanish 21 table, the odds are more in your favor because there's no 10s in the deck, and the dealer doesn't stay at 17.
The dealer has to hit on 17?
Yep. They have to hit until they win or bust. The dealer does not stay at 17.
Okay. Fascinating. I don't know if I ever played Spanish 21. That's probably in Vegas. They probably don't have that around here.
I think Northern Quest every once in a while has one. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the one that's in Airway Heights.
Okay. I don't know. I've never been there, so.
Yeah.
When you say Northern Quest, it sounds kind of Washingtonian.
Yeah. Yeah, it's up there in Airway Heights by the airport. Yeah. Vegas... Almost every casino in Vegas will have at least one Spanish 21 table, but that's it.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because the odds are more in your favor. Yeah. They don't like it.
They don't like that.
Yeah.
They got to pay for the dancing waters in the middle of the desert, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be expensive.
Yeah. But I mean,
they need to win.
It's a good trainer for people who don't know how to play blackjack. Like, if they can coax somebody new into playing the Spanish 21, right? Then the odds are you're going to win. So if you go and you win at Spanish 21, then that might prime you to go like, oh, well, I know how to play blackjack now, right?
And you see all these queens and jacks, and you're like, what the hell's this?
Yeah. If nobody tells you, oh, by the way, in blackjack, there's 10s, and the dealer stays here, and there's more of a chance that they're going to beat you every time, then you're going to go over and play, and you're going to lose your ass.
Yeah, and basically, you're also on a team. I don't know, is Spanish 21, you're kind of like a team thing, like where you have to not get the card that's going to bust the dealer?
Oh, yeah. See, and I don't know, that's another aspect of blackjack that I haven't quite grasped yet. I'm the asshole that will...
Well, you like to sit in that spot.
Yeah.
To have more time.
Yeah, but I'm the asshole that will hit because I know I'll win, even though it's going to screw over everybody else.
Well, there's sometimes there is a card, which I don't, still to this day, I've had so many copies of them, but I've never fully memorized. But it's basically a simple graph, like dealers showing and what you have, right? And it's just, there's stand, hit, double, right? Pretty much it. Yeah. So if people know that card, and most people claim to know that card, if you're in a situation where you hit and the card said to hit, no matter what, it might, if bust a dealer or not, it's like you're supposed to hit. Right? Like, you got like what? A 7. You got a 3 and a 4. Like, are you just going to like stay with the 7? Like, no, I don't think so. Yeah. Right? You have to hit on, there's certain, it depends on the scenario. The ones that are really tight are the ones that bother you because you're just like, I could go either way on this one. I don't know what the card says. And then like you make the decision and you take the dealer's bus card, and then everyone else at the table is like,
Yeah.
But again, it is your money, right?
Well, I'm still learning the mechanics of doubling down, splitting, all that stuff.
Yeah. It's all on some card. I don't know if you can probably Google it. You could probably Google up the blackjack strategy card if you've never seen it.
Blackjack strategy card?
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but yeah, it's so because then it will show you the there's the card or chart or whatever. And they'll give you like red, green, and
Oh, yeah.
So this is the thing that I've tried, and when I was playing it like just in an app or something like that. Oh, it should be like an actual like chart.
Oh, like yeah.
Like I don't know, maybe if you there it is,
Oh,
right
there it
there,
is, yep.
exactly. So that tells you everything. Your hand on the left and the dealer's face-up card.
Oh,
So
okay.
the yellow's a double, and then the blues or the H's are the hit, right? So so you notice that every time the dealer's got an ace showing, you're hitting, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, if they don't blackjack your ass immediately.
Unless you have like 18 or you have 20. Yeah. So the ones that are always the confusing ones are the aces, right? So your hand, you have an ace 6, right? And you're against a dealer that's got a 6. You're supposed to double, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the weird part, that right where your arrow is actually, it's this weird wedge on the chart of like a double, right?
Oh, ace 6.
Yeah. Ace 6 against a 3, 4 through 6. So and then it's weird because an ace 5, it's only against a 4, 5, and 6.
Huh.
So see, that's why it's taken me a lifetime. I still don't have this thing completely memorized. But my point is that if you're in that position and anyone questions you, you can just refer like I was playing what I remember of the chart.
Oh.
So it's like the chart says I was supposed to hit, right?
Yeah, because this doesn't necessarily take into account everybody else that's playing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't take into account. Well, yeah, you just can't officially do that. Even though where you like to sit, it feels like you are like, part of that, and people will give you shit for it. But if you're just playing your hand against the dealers, which is ultimately what it comes down to, then you have to play by that chart. And if it says hit, then you hit. The other thing is that every dealer's got this memorized, and it's legit. At least it was where I remember in Vegas. To like, you can ask the dealer, what does the card say? And it says the card says to hit, right? So they'll tell you because they have this memorized. I think that's part of their job.
And I've had good dealers before that are basically going to teach you how to play while you're going. I was at the Four Queens once with my brother, and we sat down at this table, and there's this like smoking hot, like blonde chick with this Russian accent was the dealer. And at the Four Queens, they make them wear like these skimpy dresses and stuff.
Another distraction.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Get your money.
Yeah. Because you want to sit there and you want to, just keep spending money and playing so that you can talk to the
Double
good looking
down.
chick
Yeah.
who really doesn't give a shit. She sees 1,000 faces a day.
Right.
She's only smiling at you because it's her job.
And you can tip her.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's kind of like a stripper. They're not your friends. They're there to make money.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was actually really cool because like we're sitting there and she was telling everybody. She's standing there. She gets, she pulls everybody's cards out, and then whoever she was pointing at, she was like, what do you want to do? And then somebody would be like, I want to hit. And she's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I do. And she's like, no, you don't. You want to stay. And he'd be like, okay, I guess I'm staying. And then she'd go to the next guy and be like, what do you want to do? He'd be like, I want to double down. She was like, you could, but you're probably going to lose if you do that. I wouldn't. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm not going to. And she was doing that to everybody. She was telling everybody what to do. And I was like, man, how has this chick not been fired yet?
Yeah.
So, and it went on like that for her entire round because she came on right as we sat down at the table. So we were sitting there with her for like a half hour, 45 minutes.
Was she losing that whole time?
Almost the whole time. Yeah. She barely was winning at all.
She was probably breaking even.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was making shitloads of tips.
Yes, there you go.
Everybody at that table, and I think me and my brother tipped her a little bit too, but I mean, everybody was just, we'd win.
Well, sure.
And then we'd toss chips her way, and she'd put it in her little tip thing.
Right.
you know? It's like, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well,
That's the best experience playing blackjack I've ever had.
more money to her and less to the casino.
Yeah.
And they can afford it, you know?
Yeah. Like I said, though, I don't know how the pit boss didn't come over right away. I was like, you're fired. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. She wasn't, maybe he probably gets a cut of her tips.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If they're smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be very wise.
Working it out that way.
Yeah. Yeah, blackjack's a very addictive thing. Yeah, it's just a total like rush when you like double down and you hit the 21. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's fun. How are we doing?
Well, we've been at this for about 2 hours now.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Yeah. It doesn't even seem like it's been that long.
Yeah, I know.
All right. We
Cool,
want to wrap
dude.
this up?
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It was good to have you. Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
over, and
Yeah.
thanks for doing the cast with me.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for this. Is fantastic. This setup, man.
Yeah, I've been trying to put it together for a while, and it finally worked out. So.
Yeah. Kick ass.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.